Okay, I think it's about time to get started with our committee meetings. Again, I want to welcome everybody. It feels good to be back on campus, speaking personally. It's been over a year, so I'm fully vaccinated and encourage everybody else to get their vaccines. And the plan right now, at least, would be for our June board meeting and Saturday planning session to be in person. So hopefully everybody's ready and prepared for that. And again, before we get started, I just want to say thank you to the president and his leadership team and everybody on the EIU campus again for your focus on protecting our students and our faculty. The president gave us continuous reports on how we were doing related to COVID. And I just admire the responsibility that the students, particularly, I think, took to keep our numbers relatively low. So thanks to everybody. It means a lot. We do have everybody here except PJ Thompson's going to be a little late coming into committee meetings this morning.
I'm here.
Oh, PJ's here. He's not very late at all. Thanks, PJ. So with that, we'll get started with the Executive and Planning Committee. And I think we have an introduction to start with.
Thank you, Chair Bauer, and good morning to everyone. And I want to welcome our trustees that are here in person today. Thank you for being here on campus, and our trustees that are still working remotely. We look forward to having everybody back on campus as soon as possible. So thank you all, and it's great to see you. Well, this morning I'm excited to introduce EIU's new head men's basketball coach, Marty Simmons. We had an amazing array of outstanding candidates vying for this position, which made us feel pretty good. And Coach Simmons rose to the very top. Previously, he served as the head coach at his alma mater, the University of Evansville, as well as at Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville, and Wartburg College in Iowa. But most recently, Coach Simmons comes to EIU after serving on the coaching staff at Clemson, where the Tigers played in this year's NCAA tournament. Coach Simmons is a native of Lawrenceville, Illinois, not too far away from here at Charleston. Where as a high school player, he helped lead his team to 2 straight Illinois State basketball championships and was named one of the 100 legends of Illinois High School Association basketball in 2006. He was also honored with the title Illinois Mr. Basketball in 1983. Well, Coach Simmons, thanks for joining us to meet our Board of Trustees. And if you could you share a little bit about yourself and how you feel about becoming an EIU Panther. Morning, Marty.
Good morning, Dr. Glassman, and thank you for your kind words, and thank you and Tom Michael and the Board of Trustees for giving me this opportunity. I couldn't be more excited. As you said earlier, you know, I was born and raised in Illinois, and I had the good fortune of being a high school player and participating in the holiday tournament up here in Charleston and playing in 4 super sectionals, which very, very fond memories, packed house, great crowds, and really the people here in Charleston wrapped their arms around the tournament, made us players and coaches feel really warm and welcome. You know, Eastern is a terrific institution, a lot of opportunities for young men with their education. We want to give them the same opportunity from a basketball standpoint where we can teach and learn and develop and grow on the court. And then our ultimate goal is that they have a terrific student athlete experience where when they leave Eastern, they have tremendous pride, great memories, and they want to come back and continue to participate with the university. I did have a great conversation just a couple days ago with Henry Dahmerkamp, and it's kind of neat to hear, you know, his memories and his feelings towards the university, and obviously his playing career as a Panther. Just really, you know, excited, hit the ground running. We've been working with our players now for 2.5 weeks, just trying to get to know these guys, re-recruit the current guys while still, you know, reaching out and trying to find new players. I do believe today we will announce the signing of a player, Paul Bizamana, from down in the Fort Worth area. He's a 6'8" player that handles it, passes it, shoots it, very athletic, very good student, just a terrific young man. So I feel like we've kind of hit the ground running, and we're really excited to be here.
Thanks, Coach. Trustees, any questions that you have for Coach Simmons or wish to welcome him?
Yeah, I just want to welcome you to campus. We're excited to have you as part of the EIU family.
Thank you very much.
I'd just say it's hard for me to imagine, especially in Marty's line of work, that you can accomplish anything without passion and enthusiasm. And I had the opportunity to interview 4 candidates on campus, and they, first of all, it's 4 great candidates team. So it's very successful search members are that good. But mostly because of these, I'm confidently selected the right person. His passion for this job at Eastern Illinois University couldn't have come out any stronger. I've heard, because of Warrensville being just down the road, people my age who certainly know Marty and Doug on the staff, that there's an enthusiasm and an excitement about what's going on, and it really starts with Marty's passion. So couldn't be more excited about it. Welcome him to the EIU family.
Thanks, Joe.
Anything else?
Thanks, Marty. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Glassman.
You
Thank
bet.
you, board.
Have a great day.
You too.
The second agenda item that we have on our Executive Planning Committee is a standing item, and that is always an update as to what's going on in Springfield and our government relations and associations as to what's moving in the sessions, particularly in the springtime, where sessions are in full force, and we work towards advocating for our appropriation and so on. This year has been very different, just as it was last year. Without the pandemic in play, I would be spending a lot of my time in Springfield, going from office to office, talking to members of the General Assembly, talking about EIU, talking about our needs, talking about our accomplishments and our successes, and asking them for their support on various bills, and certainly where it comes to appropriation. But because of the pandemic, again, like last year, there's very, very limited access that we have in person with members of the General Assembly. And that would also be true with the governor's office and other offices across Springfield. So much of it is done through Zoom, much of it is done by personal phone calls and texts, but it's just different. I look forward to next year when hopefully the sessions will be both the House and the Senate right in the Capitol, and we can have that access. Relative to the various bills and so on that are in front of us, first, we are always interested in most advocating for appropriation. I have not heard a great deal of discussion about appropriation right now. Right now, most people are looking at various bills that committees are putting forward. As you know, the appropriation of the governor was a flat budget for higher education, as flat to last year's. We are not hearing too much variance from that right now, but anything can change in the months of April and May. So we'll be doing more discussion, certainly more review, more advocacy, and so on in that regard. EIU has completed our testimony to the higher ed appropriation committees of the House and the Senate. I'd like to personally thank Sean and Paul and Jay, as well as Katie, for joining me at the appropriation hearings. They did an incredibly good job and provided me with the needed support that was necessary for answering some of the questions that we were being given by senators and by House members. I believe we did a good job. Certainly the feedback that we received from many of the Higher Appropriation Committee members was that they recognize EIU as being a university that is maintaining our budget at a reasonable level, that we are not highly administrative in our costs, that we are putting our taxpayer money towards our students' education and their learning, and this has always been the tradition at EIU. So I'm very proud that they recognize this, and hopefully it will be honored in our appropriation. As I mentioned, that we are watching and advocating for, or in some cases in opposition, of several bills that would affect EIU. The deadline for bills getting through committees is today, and there has been a flurry of them. The number of bills, there's been over 600 bills that were filed in the House and about 300 in the Senate. Obviously, not all those will get through committee and through the third reading, but we are watching those carefully. And several members of our President's Council, including myself, have been involved in working with Katie in providing testimony and providing our opinions on these bills. Again, some of them are very favorable, and we certainly support them, and to try to provide justification as to why they would be good. There are other bills that we believe would affect EIU in not the most positive of manner, and therefore what we try to do is give information to the sponsor and to other members of the House and Senate, particularly those that are on that particular committee, and try to indicate to them why this may unintentionally disadvantage higher education or the 12 public universities in Illinois. And in those cases, sometimes those bills do move forward out of committee, but oftentimes it's with the promise of an amendment to that bill, and for the amendment, the universities would be involved in what that amendment might look like. And we've seen a couple of those happen already. Jay has been instrumental, Paul, again, Sean, Ann has been involved, and of course I have, and we think that things are moving very, very well, and that the bills that we're watching are moving along pretty much as we would like them to see. There's a couple of bills out there that are difficult for us, and we are working on those. Finally, the IBHE is very close to finalizing their strategic plan. This is a 10-year strategic plan with overarching goals of providing the workforce for Illinois, educating the workforce, that is, equity, and accessibility into our university system, as well as college system, and also affordability. And we have been working, the presidents of the 12 public universities, presidents and chancellors, have been working with the IBHE, as well as their numerous work groups that they have, in trying to make sure that we are all consistent with our thoughts, our ideas, and our visions. And I want to thank the IBHE for their continuation of integrating the presidents and chancellors into their discussions. Most recently, we'll have a meeting coming up next week, I think on Monday, with the IBHE. This is with the presidents and chancellors to talk about the kind of final stages of the IBHE strategic plan. And then they were very, very close to getting it to their board for approval. So we look forward to being a part of that plan in the future. We all have been talking about equity and inclusion and diversity on all of our campuses, and to implement some type of accountability to the universities is something that we welcome. We also know that it also takes additional resources in order to do this. And we are very, very hopeful that the state will become a partner in that as the IBHE lays down goals for us, and that we are required to have accountability towards meeting those goals, that this really needs a shared partnership with the state. And we believe that the state will be behind it, and that we'll all work together to achieve a more equitable higher education for the citizens in Illinois. That concludes my report on the Springfield update, but I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for the president of Springfield?
The community college four-year degree in education, is that one of the bills that's slowing down? Do you feel like, where do you think that stands?
Right now, it passed, I believe, its second reading in the committee, maybe even the third, which would put it out of committee, and the sponsor agreed to sit down and work on an amendment, perhaps. The liaisons of the 12 public universities have met with the sponsor. They're trying to work on trying to instill the idea of a consortium that would have a true partnership between the community colleges and the 12 public universities by a regional focus in which we could accomplish the same need without having to have a BAS degree in the community college system. I'm not sure that we have been convincing to the point that that will actually end up in the bill, but that is what we have all pledged to do, that we can meet that need. This is very similar in many, many ways to if we go back a couple of years ago. The same issue of having a baccalaureate degree took place among the community colleges, and at that time it was nursing. There's a big nursing shortage. We can't get enough nurses. The community colleges need to be involved in that, and so on. And the universities again partnered with the community colleges, including EIU, and 2 years later we have been meeting that need. And so it hasn't been as great. We're meeting that need by doing online things. We're meeting the need by going out to community colleges, teaching courses where the people live. And we see this as very, very similar. We're asking what needs does the community colleges have, and we are prepared to be a partner to meet them. And the challenge is really trying to get the trust between the community colleges and the universities. That the community colleges need to trust us, and we will do it. We will do what we've said. In fact, one of the community college presidents in a comment identified EIU specifically as a university that is one that always reaches out and always provides the extra attention and the extra needs that community colleges is looking for to prepare their students for careers. And so I'm proud of that, but all of the universities have agreed, together, that this is what we want to do. This is best practice, we believe, and we hope the sponsor will put an amendment that allows that to take place. Even if it was a pilot, let's do it for a year or two. If it doesn't work, then we can take a look at a whole change of the operations and the legal jurisdictions of community colleges and universities. So that's one of the bills that's very very critical and very controversial right now. Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Good morning, President Glassman. Good morning to everyone in the room. I didn't get a chance to say good morning, but I wanted to just address and say, is that the bill that keeps you up at night? Is that the one that would you say is highest priority as far as impact on Eastern?
That is a bill that absolutely keeps me up at night. That is a bill that I'm very concerned about, and the answer is yes. That would be the bill right now that would have the greatest effect not only on our university but other universities across the state if they changed essentially the law that community colleges cannot offer baccalaureate degrees to then open up and allow that type of degree to be offered at the community colleges. That is a significant change in the operations between community colleges and universities.
Thank you.
So if trustees know various General Assembly members, good time to reach out. Yeah. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Anything else? Very good. Our next topic in the Executive Planning Committee is an update on both our COVID-19 cases, the testing that we're doing, and at this time, also looking at vaccinations. So I'm going to provide a little bit of background. I will ask Ann if there's anything that I missed to add into it, and certainly any questions that you have, we'll do our best to respond to. Relative to the number of cases, positive cases that are taking place on our campus, for the last several weeks, it has been very, very low positivity rates on our campus. It is not uncommon to have a week in which there are only 1 or 2 people among our entire university community who have tested positive for COVID. And this has been continuing, as I said, for a number of weeks right now. So we're very, very pleased at that. And it certainly makes me feel ever proud of our students and of our faculty and our staff and everybody on our campus who is continuing to follow the policies of wearing their masks and spacing themselves 6 feet and everything else that goes along with that. Having said that, if we look at the state of Illinois, they have had now increases in positivity over these last several weeks, and that is also starting to be seen in Coles County. And so we are somewhat bucking the trend. I know of other universities right now that are spiking in cases, but we are very fortunate here at EIU to have maintained the transmission of the virus and doing a very, very good job, as I said, that I'm very pleased of. So we're going to be monitoring this closely. Of course, you come to us this week, that is the trustees, in the last week of classes. So this is it. We've made it through the year, and next week will be finals, and then we'll move into graduation, which I'll talk about in just a couple minutes as well. And so this has just been a challenging year that we have managed and navigated through in a positive fashion. And I couldn't be more pleased to say that. Most of our classes, probably in the neighborhood, I'm kind of looking over at Jay to get a nod, but about 90% of our classes this summer are going to be online. So this is just not going to be an issue for us during the course of the summer. So we really have met that challenge. As far as testing, we have been testing throughout this semester using the Shield saliva testing. We've been doing it on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and also our student athletes have been testing using this method. Generally, we have as many as about 500 tests per week. Sometimes we average in the 300s, up to 400 people who will take it. The last week it's been down. Many of our students and our employees have transitioned to being more concerned about getting a vaccination or being vaccinated than actual testing. But the testing continues, and that's where we get most of our information surveillance-wise about the positivity rates that are on our campus. And we will continue to maintain that. We're going down to just one next week, I think, one day. And then we'll have in the summer, I think, a little bit going on for our employees. Our students will be gone. And then we'll see what we need to do when we return to campus in August. As far as vaccinations, EIU and our medical center and Ann and her office have worked very hard for us to be a certified vaccination site for COVID-19. And we have received that designation and the authority to provide vaccinations to our students and to our employees. And I'm really pleased that we're able to do that. Just this week, we received about 2,000 doses of the Moderna to campus. And starting on Monday of next week, we will start a vaccination clinic to vaccinate all of our employees, or any employee and any student over the age of 18 that would like to be vaccinated. For our employees, of course, their second dose will take place right on our campus. For our students, we encourage them to come back to campus to get their second dose. That's the easiest way of doing it. It is hassle-free to do it that way, and they won't have to look for a site to get that second dose. That's what we're going to encourage them to do. However, the the Illinois Department of Public Health has indicated that if a student has their first shot on our campus, they'll be able to go to the Illinois Army Reserve mass vaccination sites. They can get their second dose there, or with any partner pharmacy with the Illinois Department of Public Health, and many of the pharmacies are, they can arrange to get their second dose there. Originally, we had hoped to provide J&J vaccine for our students next week, but as you know, that vaccine is not available right now, although we hear that it might start becoming available as soon as perhaps next week. So it's all a timing issue. It's all, everything has to fall into place, but we are so very pleased that we'll be able to vaccinate our students right here and our employees right here on campus, so they don't have to go anywhere away from campus. They register right here, and they get their card right here. So we're now, as you can see, we're transitioning from cases to testing, where there are few positive tests, to vaccination, to try and get everybody vaccinated. One of the most talked about issues relative to vaccination across the country, as well as in Illinois, as well as with the universities and colleges, is will there be a mandate that students and/or employees, will be required to vaccinate? Right now, there are about 42 universities, I believe, in the country that have indicated that they will mandate every student must be vaccinated. Of those 42 schools, the vast majority are private institutions. There are very, very few public institutions. To really require a mandate, and our general counsel is talking to the other general counsels in all of the universities, the U of I council team is working on this issue together, is that the easiest way it would be in Illinois for all students to be mandated to be vaccinated would be if they included it, the Illinois Department of Public Health included it as a mandate for students, like they include some other vaccinations that individuals get. At this point, it does not appear that they wish to mandate it in that way. And so now the question becomes, what is our legal authority to mandate it? Do we have legal authority to do it? What's the risk on both sides of not mandating it or mandating it, that we're trying to deal with that issue? And whether or not we could potentially mandate it for individuals who live on the campus, on the university property, versus students who live outside the university. These are all unanswered questions, by the way, but it is the most discussed issue relative to vaccination among university presidents across the country right now, is what can we do, what do we need to do? We obviously want to be as safe as possible. We want to be back to normal with the full array of in-person classes. We want the faculty to feel comfortable teaching in person with all of the students. So all of these factors come into play, and we're just going to have to continue to work this out and hear what guidance we get from the Illinois Department of Public Health, the Illinois Board of Higher Education, and the governor's office as to exactly what we can and cannot do. In the meantime, what we do have control over is encouragement, motivation, and messaging that we believe and would really want all of our students to be vaccinated and to consider being vaccinated as something to be doing for the health of others, even if they are not concerned with the vaccination for concern for themselves. You know, let's be altruistic, let's all be Panthers, let's get together, let's vaccinate, and then it just doesn't become an issue anymore. The other factor in the vaccine and the mandated that has come up with a lot of discussion is that the vaccines, all three of them that we have right now, have the EUA approval, which is the emergency use approval. To get FDA approval, it often takes a very, very long time and can be years. In this particular case, the EUA allows us to vaccinate. And some individuals, you know, are suggesting that you could not or maybe not able to vaccinate mandatorily unless it was off of the EUA. Again, just another unanswered question, but one of the myriad questions that we're dealing with to see what would be the best for our students. I won't belabor the point, but if we can just convince our students and convince our employees and convince our community, go ahead and become vaccinated, then that is going to be helpful to the health on our campus, in our community, in our county, and we can get back to business as usual, and I believe everybody would love that. That's all that I have. Ann, did I miss anything that you'd like to add?
I don't think so, President Glassman.
Okay. And open up for questions to the trustees.
Yeah, it's Marty. Just a question on the vaccines going forward. You know, what, and I know it's early stages, but what, if we don't go with a mandatory vaccine policy, what changes on campus sort of need to happen to make sure that, you know, the folks who aren't vaccinated are safe, and likewise the folks who are vaccinated, who are around folks who are not vaccinated, are safe? Like, what's the planning process look like for that, Dr. Glassman?
Well, the plan certainly is to start our vaccination clinic, to continue to message our students and encourage them. Certainly in August when they come back, well, even before, as we send out our fall plan to all of our returning students and our future Panthers, we'll have information in there, and it will include that we will strongly encourage them, if that's the words that we can use at that time instead of mandate, strongly encourage that everybody to have their vaccine before they come to campus in August. And then in August, as soon as students onboard onto campus, we'll have our vaccination clinics up and running, and encourage, again, give every opportunity, the ease that any student would want to have, do it centralized on campus, and try to vaccinate as many people as possible.
Will we require reporting? So in other words, you know, will students need to tell you, and I guess, whether or not they've been vaccinated and then show proof of vaccination?
That's a question that we've been talking about, the presidents across the state. You know, are we going to ask to see cards from students? Are we going to simply survey them so that we know what % of students have been vaccinated on the campus? And we haven't come to the conclusion as to exactly what we'll be doing in that regard.
Okay. Then I guess for larger events on campus, right? So football games, basketball games, concerts, when all of that starts to become more normalized.
Yeah.
Are there things there that we're considering in terms of what would be required to attend a large group gathering like that?
Absolutely, and for our first example will be for our graduation ceremonies, so kind of a good segue here, that we have 4 graduation ceremonies planned for May 8th. And in the state of Illinois, there are certain regulations about how many individuals can be in an outside stadium. And I think it's in the neighborhood of 20% or 25%. And we are limiting tickets to that limit for the students. However, it is also part of the guidance that we have that if you have had a vaccine and you've been fully vaccinated, you do not count as part of that 20 or 25%. So what we're going to be doing for graduation is we're going to have one gate or a couple of gates that are for ticket holders and another gate for anybody who wants to come through that can show us their card that they've been fully vaccinated. And they will not count in the total, and they will let us allow students to have a larger number of family members there if they've been vaccinated. So kind of an incentive that has been taking place for that, for them to become vaccinated. And that's how we'll start doing other types of gatherings, is separate entry for those that have vaccination cards. They don't go into the total number of people, and that will allow us to have more and more normalized and larger types of activities across campus. And this is what the students are looking forward to. So that way, we're hoping that the students will become vaccinated, because then it's not a limit of, the first 30 people can come see this comedian.
Right.
It's, hey, be vaccinated, you're always in. That's your ticket to every event that we have on campus. And so that's an important incentive that we have.
Good.
Any other questions?
I saw yesterday in the news where I think California now is mandating for all their public universities
Yeah.
that a vaccine will be required.
They're the
right?
first.
Yeah.
Moving on to our next agenda item, one that's always a standing item as well, and very, very important, of which we are all interested in, and that's what's taking place in enrollment management and how recruitment is going and how things are looking as we move through the funnel and get closer to the finish line, which is coming up, when school starts in August, not too many months away. Josh, you want to take us through enrollment management?
Absolutely. First of all, we are investing in our leaders and in our organizational culture. We're making a long-term investment in enrollment management. We've completed our leadership and cultural assessment with the majority of the staff completing that, and it's just been wonderful to have that feedback in response. We've developed core values that are now on the enrollment management website, and that we're using as a lens for decision-making, for hiring and evaluation processes. Is just really going to serve us well going forward, and continuing to develop a culture within enrollment management that is first and foremost student-centered. We've been doing leadership development sessions based on that cultural assessment and that feedback. And we have months of weekly leadership training sessions planned. The 3 that we've accomplished so far are being a consistent leader in ever-changing circumstances, exploring creative options for advancement, growth, and meeting staff priorities, and developing an office culture that is all in for our students. I am convinced this investment will pay dividends in our leadership and culture for years to come. So really excited about that effort, that being underway, and I know that our leaders in enrollment management are excited about being part of it. It's just been great for all of us to be on Zoom together and covering that material and growing together. We also continue to focus on student success, retention, and reentry. As we meet for the June board meeting, we'll be talking a lot about reentry and readmission, because as we think about student success, so often those students who have stopped out are left out of the recruitment process. And so we've really been reimagining the readmission process and looking at those students as a new prospective student population. So I'm really excited to share more with you in the June board meeting about that in particular. We've selected 90 participants in Freshman Connection and Transfer Connection, so we still have 210 more selections to make before we have the fall 2021 cohort complete, and that cohort will be twice the size as the one we had last year because it was so successful fall to spring, and I'm really excited to know what those fall to fall retention numbers will be. We have implemented a new academic renewal policy, which is really exciting for a particular student population that if they complete 12 hours with a 2.0, they can literally start over with a 0-point GPA. And that's fantastic for students who have stopped out and maybe had a tough time their first go around at EIU, and they're thinking their only option is to go to another university. I think it's really going to help us from a marketing standpoint and see those students come back and complete. And so really excited about that new policy that CAA approved just weeks ago. We've also been working in the committee on retention efforts. They've just been doing tons of work under the leadership of Dr. Phelps and Dr. Davenport. We've implemented 7 new communications to support current student registration to push those students through and make sure that we retain more of those students. Financial aid and student accounts have been working together for students who have holds over $1,000 to ensure that they can register in a timely fashion and offering support, whether it be additional loans or scholarships, connecting students to all of our resources to ensure their success. We are in the process of developing a centralized tutoring resource center in the current Gregg Technology Center. That's Mona Davenport's initiative. Really excited about bringing all of our tutoring resources together, having them in one place, and students knowing that that's a place they can go when they're struggling academically. We've overhauled the early alert system. It's been updated to be more user-friendly and require information that will allow more effective planned interventions for our students. The associate deans are working with marketing and communications to develop standardized curriculum guides for every department on campus to provide the best line of sight possible, not just for our current students, but also for our prospective students. That's a huge piece from the standpoint of making sure the student reaches that finish line of graduating and walking across the stage. And finally, what most of you want to hear about, we continue to work extremely hard in the areas of recruitment and enrolling our students. This is the last day of Go Time Week. We typically have a Go Time weekend, and the significance of Go Time is that once we start getting around that May 1st time frame, that's National Decision Day. That means so many of our prospective students are making that decision in this time frame, and I'm so proud of our staff and everything that they've done to facilitate all the things that have happened during the Go Time week. I mean, we've given students 100 reasons to choose EIU, and what's so amazing is how what our prospective students and our current students are posting is just so succinct with who we are and how we are all in for our students. We've had live tours, scholarship contests, Instagram and Snapchat takeovers, countless testimonials, videos produced just for the Go Time event, live ask and admissions counselor sessions, tours of popular programs and experiential opportunities, just tons of content to support this critical time. It's really been a fantastic opportunity. If you haven't gone out to check it out, it's eiu.edu/EIU Go Time. And there's a whole page of just the content that's been produced, not just by our marketing and communication staff, but also our current and prospective students. It's produced over 265,000 impressions and 5,800 interactions so far, and that doesn't even include today's activity. And finally, where we're at from a standpoint of recruitment and registration, we are navigating one of the most unique enrollment cycles of my time here at EIU. It is clear that the college choice process has slowed for our prospective freshmen, with them seeing the greatest impact, with our admits up 1%, our deposits down roughly the same number of deposits associated with our on-campus event waivers, and our orientation reservations up 1%. I continue to be cautiously optimistic about that population, but if I'm being honest, those numbers are not where I'd hoped they would be at this time. However, late indicators for most new students and current student populations are showing signs of growth for next year, to include international, graduate, and transfer populations. Our largest gains over last year at this time are with traditional transfer admits, which are up 11%, and reservations for orientation up 27% at this time, and international graduate admits up a whopping 84%. So it's great to see that. And as far as registration goes, it's also excellent to see that enrollment is tracking ahead of last year for both summer and fall, with summer registrations up 11% and fall registrations up 3%. So great to see those efforts in the retention area paying off, and our continued enrollment growth show in these early times for both fall and summer registration. And finally, there's been so much to love during EIU Go Time. If you haven't, make sure you check out the page like I talked about. I just wanted to read this post from a student that just had me misty-eyed yesterday morning. The student says, "I normally don't participate in these things, but I'm all emotional as the semester comes to a close. Happy EIU Go Time week. First off, I want to highlight that I'm a freshman here at EIU, and so my experience with college has been a little less than traditional for sure. However, I think that the pandemic proved to me just how right I was in choosing Eastern. Eastern cares, and they show it in everything they do. Not once have I felt like an inconsequential person at EIU, and I always have felt encouraged and supported, even when there were things I disagreed with. The staff, students, and everyone affiliated with the university truly does care about the students. They've almost all been understanding of how hard it is to transition to university life, especially due to the state of the world. I've been so lucky to find people I love that love me and to make so many amazing memories with them. Whether we're on campus, walking to Steveville, or off campus at Fox Ridge, I feel at home. There's always an event going on, and there's always something to do. The RAs and student representatives are amazing people who want nothing more than to help us succeed, and the sense of community here is astonishing. I wouldn't trade my time here at Eastern for the world. Everyone here is genuinely like a huge family, and I'm so blessed to have and be a part of this community. This year has been the best year of my life, and I owe it to you, EIU, honestly." That just floored me, thinking about the student experience this year for one of our incoming freshmen to say that about the experience. It just speaks volumes to the work that our faculty, staff, and our community does to make our students feel welcomed and loved. I love that, and so I just wanted to end with that with my update.
Thanks, Josh. That really was a beautiful testimonial from that student. Any questions for Josh?
Josh, it's just hard for me with all those numbers and different inputs. So what would you project? What's your estimate as far as not the online, but just on campus enrollment? And I know that's probably unfair, but that's okay. What do you think it'll be?
I think we're going to see a slight increase. I don't think we'll be down. I don't think we'll be flat. I think we'll see a slight increase over last year.
What do you hear from your peers?
It's a different narrative from each institution, but the majority are seeing a lag in the freshman commitment specifically, and applications are down at the vast majority of institutions. So we've all been in the same boat. I feel like our chief enrollment manager meetings are just an opportunity for us all to commiserate from the standpoint of just talking about the difficulties of this cycle and just how, in some ways, we feel like we're flying blind. And so it's been interesting to talk to the folks from our peer institutions and just kind of work together. I think we've worked together more this year than we have in the past, as we all want to see these students succeed. And I think one of the main topics at our meeting 2 weeks ago was, as we ran our admitted students to the clearinghouse last year, I think the biggest disappointment was those students who went nowhere. They didn't go to the community college, they didn't go to a university, and we continue to run those students to the clearinghouse and see that they've gone nowhere. And so our collective goal has been to see those students take that next step and not put their future plans on hold. That was a huge consensus from all 12 public universities, that those numbers were higher than ever this past year.
Josh, in the past, there's been a significant percentage of high school students that went out of state. With everything going on, have you been able to see a change in that?
I think we will see at least a small change in that, from the standpoint of most of the institutions are seeing a larger increase in commitments from students in their region. And so I think this will have an impact, that you're seeing more students making proximity a greater a greater priority for their college search process. So I think that once this shakes out and we have the National Clearinghouse data even from last year, I think you'll see a greater percentage of students who went nowhere like we talked about, but also a greater percentage of students who stayed in proximity to their home address.
Thanks.
Hey Josh, this is PJ. And I just wanted to highlight, you talked about that student experience. I spoke with Josh earlier this week because someone in my office also had a great Eastern experience. And I'm working remotely, but I've actually got her on the phone because I felt like the trustees needed to hear what she said and just how impactful the work that the admissions and the admissions counselors and everyone is doing to kind of make sure that students that are being recruited to Eastern, get the utmost customer service. Jen, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you guys hear her?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Jen, do you mind just sharing what you shared with me about your experience with Eastern?
Sure, no problem. Good morning, everybody. I am a senior in high school. He's my oldest. Wants to go here. So he had narrowed it down to 4 schools, and Eastern is one of his top choices. So if we're getting the financial aid packages back, I have to tell you, I work at a college, and they're really difficult to understand. So we did Eastern's first. It is so clear, like the loans aren't included in, like it's part of the money that we already have. He understands it, we understand it. It was the only school we had no questions, that we didn't have to fill out 5 additional forms after the FAFSA regarding our financial aid, like to see what the package back would be. He went for the tour, and his tour guide was amazing. It was part of the reason that he kept schools on the list. He said that whoever did this tour was fabulous at it. The follow-up with him, and then even with me, whether it was like a postcard or an email, to keep him constantly engaged and remind him what to do, has been fabulous. So without really knowing Dr. PJ's role, we just talked about schools, and I shared the Eastern experience. So he said, will you tell them the story, because no one ever hears like the great things. But I'm a Northern alumni, and I have to tell you, hands down, a million times better than the experiences of information that he's gotten back, and even people getting back to us has been like, if we wait up on the phone, they'll help us immediately, or we actually do get a phone call back. So I just have to share with you, hands down to everyone from administration through staff, because he made this process a lot easier. So thank you all.
Well, Jen, thank you again for sharing that. And I think, I thought it was important that the people who you're talking to hear that from, ultimately a customer and someone who's also in higher ed and who has experienced that, just to share that Eastern continues to provide that special touch.
Absolutely, hands down. We have in-state schools, we have out-of-state schools, and hands down, the fastest response. I'll tell you, we had everything back from Eastern. He applied in December. By January 7th, we had everything. We are still getting things that we applied the same time, same day, with same information. So it's fast, it's efficient, the follow-up is amazing, and financial aid is like nothing I've ever seen before, easy to understand.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing, Jen. I appreciate that, and we'll chat later.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
So I just wanted to share that just because, I've only been at my new job for a month, but within 2 weeks of being there, she has been a cheerleader for Eastern from the minute that I've gotten there. And I just wanted to share that. I called Josh and shared that with him personally a couple days ago, but I thought that it would be just as important for the trustees and other people in the room to hear what types of things people are saying. And her student is at Lincoln Way Central, so he's up in the Chicagoland area. So I just wanted to share that and just tell Josh and everybody in admissions to keep doing what you're doing, because clearly you're making an impact on people far and wide.
PJ, now that you put that on the public record, the pressure's on, man. That student better come to Eastern. You got to close that deal.
Well, Omar Solomon is his counselor, so I told Omar, I said, you've done a great job. Let's get to work.
Awesome, PJ. Thanks for having her on to give those comments.
Any other questions for Josh and his enrollment management report? It's been an interesting year when we haven't been able to go to high schools, our counselors. Even if they could go to the high schools, many of them have been remote all year, so difficult to engage. Difficult to engage for the high school counselors to be talking to their students about college and university. Just a very, very unique environment, and as Josh said, one that nobody's been prepared for, just another element and challenge related to the pandemic and how we all have had to adapt and change, become flexible in our strategies and our messaging and in our operations, the way that we do things. And I also am thankful to everybody on campus because all are involved in the enrollment process. And Josh and his management team, as well as the admissions office, doing a great job, and we are doing all of our best to support them throughout the campus, our staff and our faculty as well. And so thanks to everybody, and we look forward to a positive year with our fall class. The next topic item on our executive planning committee is a personnel contract. This is something that the trustees will be voting on this afternoon. This personnel contract would be for our new men's head basketball coach. Typically in the sports of football, men's and women's basketball, women's volleyball, and so on, that on occasion we do have multiple year contracts that we offer. And this is a 4-year contract with the possibility of an additional 1 year depending upon performance during the course of those 4 years. I believe that you have had a statement placed in your book that talks about the contract itself, and just wanted to see if there was any questions at this time that you might have, or otherwise we'll bring it up as an action item this afternoon.
Yes, I do. I just want to comment that I understand that salaries need to be competitive, but I want to go on record as stating a philosophical objection to the university as getting into the business of sports. There's nothing in our mission statement that says that we're supposed to be doing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Edwards. Appreciate it.
Is this pretty typical time frame for what we've done for other coaches? Or
That's correct. For certain sports, multiple year contracts are the national norm in order to attract and bring an individual to campus.
If I can, we're going to have the ability under the Open Meetings Act to discuss this in executive session in more detail.
Okay, thank you, Laura.
Our next item is the collective bargaining agreement that we have concluded for the Teamsters. So I'll turn it over to Laura.
Thank you. Also, in executive session, we can have a discussion about an action item on page 27. It's a collective bargaining agreement with the Teamsters, a successor agreement that was reached earlier this year. And again, it's on page 27 of your book. Thank you.
Moving to the next item, that would be committee chairs, and I'll turn it back over to Chair Bauer.
Thank you. So Joyce, as vice chair, made calls with all of the board members besides the student trustee, just to talk about people's interests. Okay. To talk about people's interest and where they felt they would like to kind of focus some of their energies as far as the various board positions and committee chairs. Joyce and I had a follow-up conversation, then we also had some discussion with the president. The committee chairs are not elected positions, and so what we were looking at is executive and planning. That would be whoever's elected chair this afternoon, so that would go with the chair. Finance for next year, the request went to Chris Hicks to lead finance. Academic and student affairs for this coming year with PJ Thompson. University advancement and alumni relations. Marty has a passion for that. And I don't know if you'd say he has a passion for it, but Joe has agreed to be with what's the official name? Civil Service, I never get it right. Civil Service Merit Board. Anyway. Yeah, Joe will continue to serve in that role. So starting with our June meeting, these would be the changes in the chairs for the committees. Then I think next, we had asked Laura to go over the procedures for this afternoon for when we will elect new officers. Laura?
Thank you. Also on page 28 of your book is the action item for the election. Under the EIU law, we are required to have a secret ballot for the chair and the secretary positions. And then we'll have a roll call ballot for the vice chair and the member pro tem. I'll try to walk you through it. Essentially, we'll have a nomination process, and then the votes will occur. For the secret votes, I've asked you to email me or text me your vote so that I can tally them up and then announce to the group the results. For the roll call votes for vice chair and the member pro tem, Judy Gorell will be doing those for us as well. Do you guys have any questions about it? The election itself?
So again, we'll go through the nomination process and the election process this afternoon. Anybody can certainly feel free to nominate whoever they may want to. In those conversations between Joyce and I following our phone calls, we also came up with some suggestions, but they're suggestions. They'll need to be placed into nomination and voted on this afternoon. But it seemed to align, again, with people's interest, and we're trying to get as many board members to have different experiences as possible as we develop our overall skill set. So, and again, these are just our suggestions. Anybody can nominate whoever they would like this afternoon and vote on. But it would seem a natural, since Joyce has been vice chair, to look at her as our potential chair. Vice chair, PJ Thompson had a passion and interest in possibly serving in that role, so that would be a possibility there. Audrey, again, a new experience for her would be to possibly move into the secretary role. And then an easy way for me to kind of transition out might be to be member pro tem. But again, those are only suggestions. We'll need to go through the nomination process and election this afternoon, as Laura just outlined. So, any follow-up questions? Okay, anything else for executive and planning?
Just one last question to the trustees before I forget and let everybody go. And that is, I did mention our commencement exercises being held on May 8th. There'll be 4 commencements, one in the morning, one around noon, afternoon, and then early evening. Of course, as with all commencements, our trustees are invited to attend. And if you are interested in attending, if you would let me know maybe sometime today, or Judy know, so that we can make sure that that's in the plans for how we'll be seating on the stage. It will take place in O'Brien Stadium. There'll be a short stage around midfield, and you are all invited. Love to see you. We have our speakers in the first two commencements will be Tim Burke, a former trustee, wonderful supporter of EIU. He will also be receiving an honorary degree at that time. In the afternoon and evening, Representative Tim Butler has been asked and was very excited about coming to be our speaker. I must also alert that in the case of rain, we would not be able to have our commencements as planned. We have a secondary option, a rain option, which would not have a formalized commencement. It would have a modified ability for our students to pick up their degrees, perhaps meet with their dean, certainly, and also an opportunity to come and visit with the president. So we will be calling whether or not the commencement will be on or off, depending on the rain. That will be done on Friday afternoon before commencement. And obviously, if we have no commencement, there will be no commencement speeches. So we can give you that ahead time, but would love to see if you'd be interested in joining us.
And President Glassman, if I could just correct, the speakers are reversed. I believe that Tim Butler is speaking at the 9 a.m. and the noon.
Oh, is that true?
Tim Burke is speaking at the 3 and the 6. Yeah.
Very good. I stand corrected.
Okay.
I was wrong in that order. Very good. Chair Bauer, I think we're ready to move on to the Finance
I think we're
Committee.
ready for Finance and Audit. Joyce?
Okay. And I am going to turn that over to Sean and Paul and let them go through the various agenda items.
Thank you, Chair Madigan. The report distributed through to the board members is through the end of February, representing 9 months of our fiscal year. Just a couple quick comments, and then I'll turn it over to Paul to go through the details of the report. We had a pretty severe winter storm. I think they've unofficially named it Uri back in February, and that created a little bit of not only a hang-up in operations on campus, but a financial hiccup as well. We saw significant run-ups in gas and electricity prices for the week of that winter storm, and so we're continuing to watch our utility budget as we go through the rest of the year. Fortunately, the market prices did return rather quickly after that event, and the weather has certainly been tempered since then, despite the snow that we received this week again. Overall, I think we're looking pretty good, and at this time, Paul, can you walk us through the report?
Sure, thank you, Sean. On the first page, this is a combination of both the appropriated and income funds. Most of the numbers still remain in pretty good shape. I'll address a couple of them that are over budget at this point. The Social Security and group insurance is over budget, and that's primarily due to a budgeting change that we made. The comptroller asked us to move all of the expense for group insurance onto this line item, and we did not move all of the expense to at the same time within the budget. So we do have an error in the budgeting at this point, so we are over, and that will continue to be over. I'm looking at the equipment, excluding the library. We are over on that line item. We have incurred quite a few expenses this year regarding equipment, and we just didn't estimate those correctly in the original budget. The awards, grants, and matching funds, we are over budget at this point. Many of the larger distributions that we make are based upon student skills at the high school level. And so when they come, they automatically qualify for some of our awards. And that then causes this line item to be whatever it's going to be. So if anything, we will need to increase this line item within next year's budget as the student demographics, students change in what they bring to campus. And finally, the purchase of autos. We have purchased a couple of autos during the year. We did not anticipate that in the original budget. So far, as you can see by the unobligated balance, we still have about $6 million unobligated at this point, so we're still in pretty good shape for the rest of the year. Most of that amount will go to summer school salaries. So it's not like we've got 6 million, anticipating 6 million at the end of the year. Probably looking at more in the $1 million range. Any questions?
Anything?
Thank you. Sean?
Thank you, Paul. Shall we move forward with a review of the federal grant monies? The subject is HERF 3 funds. I'll start with a recap of the various federal programs that have provided both student and institutional aid to help us with combating the coronavirus. The first act was the CARES Act, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Stimulus Act that was passed last spring. HERF 1 would be the higher educational emergency relief funds that we've received there. That funding was split evenly between student aid and institutional aid, with both of us receiving $2.25 million. We also had in December, the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act, CRISA, or some acronym similar to that, which included HERF 2 funds, in which the proportions were a little bit higher for institutional relief, in which we received $5.57 million, and additional $2.25 million for student aid. So embedded within that process as well, there were a couple of other smaller grants that we received, one from the governor and from the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund, GEAR for short. That was part of the original CARES Act. That was $1.16 million. We received $225,000 in strengthening institution funds. The library received a small grant and WEIU received a grant for $150,000. With the new administration this year and the passing of the American Rescue Plan, there was HERF 3 is within that plan. We do not have formal identification of the full amounts that we will receive. We do know that the amount we receive will be split 50-50 between student aid and institutional aid. There have been estimates made and published publicly in which we believe that we will receive somewhere around $6.87 million in institutional funds and additional $6.87 million in student aid funds. In addition to not having that amount formalized yet, we also don't have formal guidance as to how those funds will need to be distributed. We are anticipating, and there have been guidelines that have been published, but without firm rules yet, that we will follow similar in many ways to the CARES or the HERF 2 funds that have been already released. So we're very thankful for these additional funds to help us recover our direct cost expenditures, as well as some very specific and limited instances of lost revenue, such as the housing refunds that we provided last year for students who left housing as the pandemic was initially underway, as well as some other events in which we lost revenue for. So I'm happy to take any questions regarding those funds.
Sean, one question, when we just had the report from Paul, and I think I've asked this each time and then don't make a note of it for the meeting, but is the grant funds reflected in these reports, or the grant expenditures reflected either?
No, they are not. This is only appropriated in income fund,
Okay.
Which is where if we're going to have any kind of problem, they're going to show up in the appropriated income before they would show up anywhere else.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
And then it looks like the next item is the internal audit. Are you?
Yes, and for the internal audit charter item, we'll call upon our internal auditor, Lee Moon. Lee, are you with us?
I am. Good
Okay.
morning, everyone. So the internal audit charter, internal auditing standards say we need to review it periodically with the administration and the Board of Trustees. So there are no changes to this charter. We last approved it in 2017, but we do need to reaffirm it. And basically what the charter does is it outlines the purpose of internal auditing at the university. It describes what internal audit does, and then that it follows the internal auditing standards, and then the state law and the Fiscal Internal Control Act. So we just need to review it and reaffirm it. And we're doing that as part of my 5-year review that's coming up this summer. Christopher Evangelista from Governor's State will be doing our quality assurance review for us this year. So I went through the charter or the standards and the code of conduct and all that at the January meeting last year. But if anybody has any questions about that, I can answer those. And the other thing I wanted to mention is, just as a reminder, the risk assessment surveys will be going out next month to the administrators and the Board of Trustees members. So be looking for an email from me with a link to a survey, and we use that risk assessment to create our 2-year audit plan. So just a reminder that that will be going out here shortly.
Lee, for clarification on the internal audit charter, the president and the chair of the Board of Trustees will review the charter and then sign it for this year as an annual process. Is that correct?
Yes. It's not an annual process, it's just a periodic, the standards say periodic.
Okay.
Well, what's the schedule of the periodic?
It kind of varies, but if there's no changes to the charter, probably about once every 5 years. Other than that, but if we do have changes, if the standards change, then we update it as need be, but about once every 5 years.
Very good, thank you.
Thanks.
Any questions for Lee? If not, then I think we need to move on to the various purchase approvals.
Yes, thank you. The first purchase, which is on page 4 of your booklet, is purchase agreement would be with EBSCO Industries Incorporated of Cary, Illinois, for an amount not to exceed $500,000 over the period of July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2022. EBSCO provides library books, periodicals, and electronic resources, such as access to electronic versions of publications for our faculty and students. And best research practices require that One's research has to be connected with previous publications and works and results, and the resources acquired through EBSCO provide access to those resources. It's recommended that the Board of Trustees approve this purchase item. Any questions on?
Is that a flat fee? When you say not to exceed, is it based on usage and gets trued up at the end of the year to determine what our actual
It is based on usage, and I believe we've provided historical purchase, the annual amounts for that. There is a starting fee, like a baseline fee to have access, and then depending on what resources are obtained through it, there could be additional fees that are added to that. In 2021, our total was $438,000. 2020, $433,000. 2019, $444,000.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Jay, do you have anything to add regarding the more specifics as to how those fees are accumulated?
Whether it's EBSCO, ProQuest, or the other sort of materials, the aggregators, the online content aggregators provide a single suite of resources. When our faculty and students move beyond that suite, there's a click to pay within another sort of catalog. And then there's a whole other collection of resources that we don't have access to. So there's a base fee for a specific catalog, and then there is some click-to-pay pieces. Year over year, we're seeing significant increases in that standard rate too from most aggregators. So we're just going to see this cost increase over the next 3 years.
Thanks, Jay. Any other questions regarding the EBSCO purchase? If none, we'll move to the next, which is with the State of Illinois Department of Central Management Services for group insurance reimbursement in a total of $1,713,300. The state requires higher education contribute to the CMS to cover shortfall in the state group insurance program, and this represents our prorated share. Your board item actually shows the breakdown between all of the institutions of higher education. And we also show a schedule in which we would anticipate 4 installment payments to be made, and there may be an error in that schedule that shows September 21st of 2020, that should be 2021, December 14th of 2021, March 22nd of 2022, and June 7th of 2022. I apologize for that oversight. This is a state requirement, and it's recommended that the board approves this purchase item.
And is this the same amount that we've been allocated previously?
It is the same amount that we were allocated in 2020 and 2019.
Thank you.
In fact, it's been the same since it was originally implemented. It's never been changed by the state.
And that was going back to 2001, Paul?
2001, actually 2002 was our first year when we paid this.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We'll move on to the Carly purchase recommendation. Carly, or the Consortium of Academic and Research Libraries, is a membership for data and database access to those library resources. The amount is not to exceed $430,000 for the period of July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2022. As a member of Carly, the university purchases access to select data and databases from several vendors at a discounted rate. Access for member libraries is billed centrally through Carly office at the University of Illinois. The resources are primarily electronic, include indexes, abstracts, and databases. This purchase supports students and faculty research in all academic disciplines, and it's recommended that the board approve this purchase item. The historic purchase prices for Carly, we have a not to exceed of $430,000 here. In 2019, we spent $394,000. 2020, $357,000. 2021 is at 163,000.
Hey, Sean, so what happens if one year it does exceed that? Like, do we have to come back and then approve the increase the next year? Is that how that works?
We would have to come back and amend the agreement and the purchase amount before we exceed the not to exceed value. And then we would adjust what we would bring back to you in the following year if we anticipated a higher amount was going to be repeated.
Gotcha. And so knowing that last year it was around 350,000, did we also approve like this not to exceed at 430? Is that what the level was last year? Do we know?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
And I may defer to Jay on this, but I believe we create essentially that cap based on our ability and our budget for our, essentially we're creating that cap for our faculty and staff and students not to exceed it. Just as a part of formulating a budget of giving any resource to any unit on campus, this is what we can afford to do in this particular area. And so it can bounce right up to the top, but we try to keep it under that and want to keep that under that just for resource needs. Jay, is that correct, or Paul?
Yeah, ordinarily, we have a sort of fixed amount every year for library resources in about the $1.2 to $1.3 million range. It's been fairly consistent even over the impasse. We protected that amount because it's critical to have a high-quality set of library resources. But we do project and approve amounts over our historical spending, and we build in that sort of accelerator rate, which we've seen is between about 8 and 9% per user, but we've seen some increases year over year of 10%.
I think also we try to give the library enough room to move those purchases around if, for instance, a specific company would pull out of the EBSCO buying group and move over to Carly. So we try to provide enough room in all of this that we don't have to come back outside of the total budget amount.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding Carly? Then we'll move on to the next item, which is for print services. The vendor is Fine Line Printing Group of Indianapolis, Indiana. The amount is not to exceed $350,000 to provide print and direct mail services. The initial term for this contract was April 24th of 2018 through June 30th, 2019 with renewal options, 4 additional 2-year periods. The contract was approved with a not to exceed amount of $200,000 for the initial term and for each subsequent renewal period. Due to an increase in the campus usage, the not to exceed amount was increased to $249,999.99 during the first renewal period. With decreased on-campus activities due to the pandemic and additional printing, the direct mail services with decreased on-campus activities with the pandemic, additional printing services and direct mail services have been required, and we're needing to go up above this limit. The federal COVID relief funding is provided to the state as a GEAR grant funding is available to help offset this increase. The request is to increase the not to exceed amount to $350,000 for the current renewal period of July 1, 2019 through June 30, 2021, and each subsequent 2-year renewal period as well, as we continue to anticipate needing additional direct mail and print materials that we will leverage this company for.
I might additionally add that this company and our relationship and partnership with it has been extremely valuable for many units across campus, and perhaps the enrollment management area the most. And I think that this has allowed us to do many things that we were not capable of doing prior in the execution and in the timing and delivery of various messaging to students and other campus or excuse me, prospective students and other enrollment initiatives, as well as I think Advancement has used FineLine now. This has been a really good relationship. And if I'm not mistaken, it is also a BEP
That's
vendor.
correct. The vendor is
and so we see it as win-win across the board. Josh, is there anything you wanted to say about FineLine?
No, they've just been a fantastic partner, and you know, I think some of Mrs. Zimmerman's testimony about our responsiveness is due to the services that FineLine provides. Their dynamic variable printing has just been an incredible upgrade for our processes. And so as soon as a student takes an action, we've got a print piece ready, and FineLine, you know, we send them a file and FineLine sends that print piece out so that they have the information that they need in a timely fashion. They've been an incredible partner for us.
Mr. Hicks, this is an example of what you asked about in the last purchase item. We are bringing this item back as it grew to an amount greater than was originally anticipated. Originally, it would not have been reported to the board except as an informational item. Now it's to the point where it exceeds the $250,000 limit. So now we're bringing it back to you for your approval.
And I wanted to add one more piece of information, just that, you know, typically we have a fixed budget from the standpoint of our marketing and our communications, but we had an influx of funds through the Governor's Emergency and Education Relief Fund. And so there were several initiatives funded by those monies that went through the FineLine process. So this likely will be a year where we spend more with FineLine than we would in a typical year.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Josh. Any other questions regarding the FineLine purchase? Great. Well, we will move on then to the last purchase approval before you today, which is with South Central FS Incorporated from Effingham, Illinois, for a not to exceed amount of $300,000 annually for a period of July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2026, with the option to renew for one additional 5-year period. This is for our annual supply of fuel and gasoline, with the specific products being, number one, dyed diesel fuel, regular 10% ethanol blended gasoline, and then the number one diesel fuel has a couple of different variations within that. So it's recommended the board approves this purchase item as well.
Traditionally, we have not come close to spending the $300,000. However, if the price of gasoline goes up significantly, we need that margin.
Yes, just for perspective, 2019 we spent $112,000 on gasoline and fuel oil. 2020 was $88,000, and 2021 $109,000. But as Paul said, if you have periods of high variability or increase run-ups in price of petrochemical products, then that can affect your budget pretty quickly. So the contract value gives us some headroom there. Well, that will conclude our purchase approvals before you today. I believe I have the next item as well. I don't, President Glassman, did you have any opening comments regarding tuition and fees, or shall we just?
No, go ahead and
thank you.
Start.
First and foremost, I want to relay on to you that we take any cost increases quite seriously. We take pride in providing a high quality and high value education to our students, and that There's been much discussion and review with President's Council over several weeks, and that the proposed increases we arrived at will keep EIU as the lowest cost provider among the four-year institutions in Illinois. With the current proposed flat appropriation, and as Josh highlighted, a flat to slightly increasing enrollment and enrollment revenue, we are anticipating relatively flat income for the next fiscal year, which is great to have. However, we do have areas of cost that are increasing, some of which are completely beyond our control. We have minimum wage that's increasing over the next several years at an accelerated clip. We also have prevailing wage for trades that's determined by the State Labor Board, and we have no input into that. And then we have other collective bargaining units, utility costs that we touched on earlier, as well as costs associated with the various systems and aspects of maintaining our building and associated equipment. And I do want to make one point also to clarify that these proposed increases are not resultant from cost associated with COVID. As I discussed earlier, the HERF funds from the federal government are largely covering our costs associated with COVID. We've shared documents in the board packet for proposed tuition and student fee, as well as housing proposed increases. Before we get into the details of that, I just want to say, in summary, the increased cost of attendance per semester for an incoming freshman will rise from, taking 15 credit hours, will rise from $10,999.91. So we had managed to keep that below $11,000. And we will break that $11,000 with this proposed increase to $11,351.10, which is an increase of $351.19 per credit hour, or per semester, or slightly above 3%. These increases were presented to Student Senate as well, who voted on resolutions for each of the items with varied support. I will address those outcomes and open additional comments there as we go through each of those. So we'll start with tuition, and for an Illinois resident, the proposed increase for FY22 new students would be at a rate of $315.74 per credit hour. Continuing non-guaranteed students would be at $308.04 per credit hour. Just to refresh everyone's understanding of how tuition is frozen for 4 years of incoming students by state law. And then after a student exceeds a 4-year period of continuous enrollment, then their tuition can increase. The non-resident proposed rate is $394.68 per credit hour for both new students and continuing students. The Illinois resident graduate tuition rate proposed is $320.45. The non-resident rate proposed is $769.07. Are there any questions regarding tuition rates? The Student Senate voted 7, and I believe the outcome of the vote was 7-7 on the tuition increase resolution, and being tied, it did not pass. But it was a split vote with 0 abstaining.
Sean, what was their feedback on that? I mean, just out of curiosity, do we have any idea what the discussion was at the Student Senate? Or maybe our student trustee can help us on that one.
I actually had the pleasure of writing the minutes for that meeting, so I did take extensive notes on the tuition resolution that we had on the table on our Wednesday meeting. Basically, a lot of the opposition came from, how do I word this? Basically, they wanted to make sure that Eastern Illinois University was still one of the more affordable universities in the state. And they recognize that, you know, year after year, newer students keep having to pay more and more. And, you know, just their experiences as students, they've realized that sometimes, you know, it's becoming more and more difficult to attend university. But they also understood that, you know, expenses are rising everywhere across the state, and, you know, every single university is, you know, increasing their rates. So that's why there was a split decision on whether or not to support this.
Okay, and then just to dig into that a little bit, because I'm a little, I just want to, I understand that the minimum wage increase is something that everyone's dealing with, but I'm not, right, I'm not totally clear when we're saying that there's, costs are rising across the state. I'm not sure what that means. I don't think that's actually objectifiably true, outside of the minimum wage increase. I mean, there's economic data that comes out every day that shows, no inflation at all. So I'm trying to understand a little bit better what the, granular detail is around how we, came up with the increase. I'm not saying I'm opposing it. I'm just trying to understand it a little bit better.
I'm not going to try to.
I think that's more for Sean, probably.
Oh,
I didn't mean to put that on you. Sorry.
Sure. Well, we certainly are seeing cost escalation in our different employee groups here at Eastern. The minimum wage is one for sure. The various trades as well that have prevailing wage rates are increasing on a year-over-year basis without outside of our control. And then we have several collective bargaining units in addition to those trades on our campus that some of the contracts are already in place with built-in increases year over year that we will, we have to accommodate. And then we have ongoing negotiations with other collective bargaining units as well currently. So we do have increases, particularly in our employment or employee costs that we're projecting for the next year that we will need to cover.
Sure, and I understand that part of it. I mean, I know we have collectively bargained increases in compensation and the like. Is there something that you have though, Sean, that could show us, so taking a look at the book, right? It's a $6.04 increase per semester hour. Is there something that shows us how you tie to that figure based on cost increases?
Yes, we would be happy to show you some additional detailed breakdown.
Thanks.
Sean, you mentioned that we were the lowest cost institution in Illinois. By how much? And what's our next institution above us?
We do not have the exact cost of what the other institutions will be raising their associated tuition fees, housing costs at this point. But the, sorry, what's that one? Oh, so on an annual basis, we had estimated our cost at $25,003, and the next lowest was $25,581. So, and that's the University of Illinois at Springfield. Go ahead, Paul.
The information that you were just given, the $25,003, is based upon the 2000, whatever last year's 21 numbers. We were about $500 low for an annual fee. So then when the school that's next lowest to us, University of Illinois Springfield, was at that $25,005, they have already announced that they are increasing their housing fees by another $200. So they're going to $25,700. So we had the room between $25,003 and $25,700 to increase. and still be the lowest.
And we kept that as our ceiling of not to exceed, of staying under.
The 25.7, you're saying that's, okay. And we're at 25.3?
We
with the
are,
increase?
right now, before any increase, we're at $25,003.
And where will we be after these proposed increases?
Right at 25.7, I think it's 707, and Springfield will be at 717.
So we've narrowed the gap considerably.
If there are no additional changes in tuition or fees at UIS, that's correct.
Right.
So far, all we've heard about is the change in housing.
So you haven't heard one way or the other on
No,
tuition?
that's correct. Katie had provided some informal updates regarding some of the other peer institutions in Illinois, although it's unclear on if those are going to be realized or not. But the general trend is increases of slightly less than 1% to 4%, depending on the institutions.
And this assumes a flat appropriation from the state, right?
Oh, that's correct.
Okay.
Which is what was in the recommended budget from the governor.
Right.
And as President Glassman indicated earlier, we haven't had an approved appropriation yet, so.
Okay. And I didn't mean, my prior line of question was not, I did not mean to sound like I know we are always operating in a way that's efficient, and we tend not to increase tuition beyond what we think is absolutely necessary to meet our costs and our funding mix between tuition and state appropriated dollars. So if I came across as being hostile to that, I apologize. No. I just, $25,000 is still, a year is still a ton of money for students, and particularly, the students that come to Eastern, it's not, we have they are looking for an affordable education, obviously relative to our peers in the state we provide that. I just, my growing concern about $25,000 a year for a state institution, even though that is relatively affordable, is, ever growing every year. I think that's, I wasn't there all that long ago, it was 21 years ago when I started, and it was, substantially less than 50% of what it costs to go now, and I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But that's an issue that every institution faces, and it doesn't matter, where, but it's still a concern of mine. I think just generally that's what it costs. It's $100,000 for a state school education now, and that strikes me as hard to understand. And I'm not saying that's our fault. We're doing what we can to keep that affordable, and there are universities that don't. It's just it's a challenge and it's a challenge for you as well. I understand that.
Just a couple of comments on that. The first comment is, you're absolutely right that inflationary costs overall are pretty flat, but there are certain costs, particularly in oil and gas and some others, that are increasing. But EIU has continually and historically been a very, very lean university. And when costs go up, we have to manage those costs, or else we have to make cuts.
Right.
The impasse has, put us in a position where we have done the cutting portion of this, so it's very difficult for us not to manage a balanced budget without making sure that we can cover current costs of the day. Given that the state has a law that tuition increases only affect the incoming class. So it doesn't affect, those that are sophomores are paying what they paid when they were freshmen, same with juniors and same with seniors. That the increased costs that we have in our contractual relationships with our unions and so on well exceeds the revenue increase that we would generate from the 2.5% proposed tuition increase. And so we do have other areas that we have to tighten up in order to meet our commitments in our salary increases and we talk about minimum wage. We do not have many employees that are affected right now with the minimum wage increase. But we have, I need to defer to somebody, how many students that we have employed for the university Does anybody have that number?
It's a little over 1,000.
A little over 1,000 student employees, and we want them to be employed because it's a great retention tool. We know that students who are working for the university are engaged. They're more likely to be able to continue and be retained and graduate. That becomes a significant number when you're raising them $1 a year, as we need to do by state law. And so, again, by raising our tuition by 2.5%, we feel that it is absolutely necessary, but it in itself is in no way going to cover the increasing costs that we will have in fiscal year 22 that we have in fiscal year 21. That's just the truth of the matter. It is very, very important to us at the same time to continue our brand as being the highest value university as measured by high quality versus the cost. And it's essential for us to remain the lowest cost of attendance university in the state of Illinois. And we look at that when we are preparing our tuition, fee, housing, and any other increase that we may be considering. And so we set that bar that there is no way that we're going to raise it above this, even if we really felt that it was essential at this time. And so those are competing factors. Second, I absolutely agree with you, Marty, on the cost of education. It does continue to rise. It does continue to cause affordability issues with many students, including the student populations that we attract at EIU. However, with the help of the federal government, with the state government, and also an increasing amount of financial aid from the university that we're extending to our students, we are trying to make it as affordable as possible for all students to attend EIU. And if you recall from Paul's report, when he was talking about the budget for this year, that our budget was, we were overspent in an area of grants and so on. And that's because of the amount of financial aid we gave this year was even greater than we had budgeted for the year. And so, again, we continue to do all that we can to not only make our university affordable, but to be able to retain the students once they're here. Paul?
Marty, and for the rest of the board, this increase of 2.5% will generate somewhere around $268,000 of additional revenue to us. So it's not a significant amount when you look at the overall value of tuition. Certainly, for those individual students, it is a significant amount. But when we look at the requirement to freeze the tuition for continuing students, this is only being affected on the new incoming students.
Right. And I appreciate that. And again, I think that the work that you all have done on this is commendable. And I think there is a lot of intentionality and thoughtfulness from this team behind creating a tuition, or first of all, a budget followed by a tuition increase recommendation to the board that is, solely what we need as a university to operate during the year. So number one, I'm extraordinarily appreciative of that. And I think that's hopefully folks, the students, their parents and the like understand that. And if they don't, I think we can do, the board can echo that, from my perspective. I'm more, as I mentioned, just generally concerned, and it's a longstanding concern that this is, it's a big expense and it's tough, right? So I understand that. And I intend to vote in favor of this largely on the fact that I think I have faith in David and Paul and Sean that you're doing what you've done every other year, which is to make sure that things operate in the way that need to be done, and the financing for the university and the budget is put together with that in mind and nothing else. So I fully 100% appreciate everything you said, Paul and Sean and David, and I'm supportive of you here. I think it was worth a more in-depth conversation given the magnitude of the total dollar amount and what people need to deal with in order to go to school these days. So that's my only point.
If I could make a quick comment here, I want to commend Dr. Glassman for trying to do everything he can to get funding for higher education from the budget of the state of Illinois, because really, this is why tuition is going up for the students. It's because state support for education is going down. The last time I taught social foundations of education is a little over 10 years ago, but I remember reading that at that time Illinois was the 5th wealthiest state in the country, and it ranked, it was in a little contest with Mississippi. It was like about 49th in its support for higher education. So we really need to do everything we can to see if we, and we know that the state of Illinois' budget is in trouble. We need to try to get taxpayer support and state support for higher education.
I just wanted to add one more point to Marty's question from the standpoint of, as we administer financial aid, we're constantly monitoring unmet need and the number of students who come to us, especially as new freshmen, and have unmet need. And so you look at that figure north of 25,000, but the president talked about, some of the programs, scholarship programs that help our students. In the last 3 years, we've done an incredible job shrinking that number. 3 years ago, the number was 358, and last year it was 326. And 3 years ago, the average unmet need was $3,970. And this last year, it was $3,295. So our commitment to making sure that our students have an education that's affordable, part of that is those financial aid, scholarship, federal and state programs. And so they're really making a difference from the standpoint of every dollar counts for that student. So we're talking about $25,000, but when you look at the average unmet need for our students and the population of students that have unmet need, we're talking about 326 students out of 900 last year and an average unmet need of $3,295.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, I don't know if we have that data available, because that's sort of where I would go next, right, is the unmet need. And I know we've had those, really outstanding scholarship programs that I think we highlighted at one of our meetings last year, and the impact that has had. And I think that's, and Ken, maybe you and I can talk about, some donor drive on something like that, because I think that's critical, right? As costs continue to increase, at the headline price to go to school, the unmet need, like a $3,900 unmet need for someone might as well be $1 million, right? If you can't do it, then you can't do it. It doesn't matter what the cost is. So, maybe that's an area that we put in a renewed emphasis on this year, and to try to reduce those numbers substantially once again, Josh. I think we've done a great job of that. I think we can just do better. That's all.
Thanks, Marty.
Great. Any other discussion on the proposed tuition increases?
Josh, from a pure recruiting perspective, how do you see positioning the rate increase, the tuition increase, or do you see it as causing you any recruiting issues?
The president actually asked me about that in PC recently, and this is just, it's such a different cycle. It's hard for me to anticipate the difference, but the great thing is that, we anticipated an increase and built it into our prospective students' budget, so the figures will be relatively the same. That financial aid award letter that Jen was reading, there's less than a 1% difference between what's on that paper and what they can expect from the standpoint of cost. And so it's not the 3% difference. It's significantly less than that when they're considering the financial aspects of attending Eastern. So it's already built in to some degree.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other discussion on tuition? If we might jump to student fee adjustments next, and then come back with Dr. Flaherty and housing, that might, I think, flow a little bit more smoothly here. On page 13 of your booklet, we have the proposed corresponding increases in the various student fees. I'll walk through each of those, and then also give you what the the Student Senate vote on those and outcomes of that vote was for each of those proposed fees. For the student union and bond revenue fee, the proposed value, the new proposed rate is $33.78. These additional resources are used to offset increased cost. The increase in costs are fairly uniform across all of these. I would add that these various areas of student fees have a higher proportion of staff, student staff included, that are impacted by the increases in minimum wage. And this $3.96 increase was voted on by the Student Senate with passing at a vote of 12 yes, 2 not in favor, and 0 abstaining. Moving to the athletic fee, the proposed increase is 78 cents to a new value of $13.78. This will help offset increases in costs associated with our athletic operations as well. The student vote on this item was 10 in favor, 3 against, and 1 abstaining. The proposed athletic fee was passed. The proposed Lance O'Brien operations fee is $6.88, an increase of $1.38. The vote on the Lance O'Brien operations fee was 8 in favor, 2 against, 0 abstaining. And then in discussion, the resolution was tabled due to errors in the resolution itself.
Confusion in what was actually being asked for.
The next proposed fee, student recreation operations fee, proposed value is $6.79, an increase of $1. The students passed this resolution with a vote of 11 in favor, 2 opposed, and 1 abstaining. And the last fee adjustment is for the grant and aid fee. The proposed value is $18.07, slightly over $1 increase. This also was passed by the Student Senate with a vote of 9 in favor, 1 against, and 2 abstaining. Be happy to address any questions regarding the proposed student fees.
I have one question. What is the grant and aid fee, and why do the students pay it? What's it for?
Paul, do you want to?
Sure. When that fee was originally established, we paid for room and board for many of the students. But as it's evolved over a period of time, we've also extended that into paying for actual tuition and fees also. It's one of the broadest ranging fees that we have in the way of scholarships. The other side of that is they are, in general, for high-performing students. So it includes athletics, it includes academics, and it includes the talented students within music.
Including our arts as well?
Yes.
Are you saying then that the student fee is a little pool of money that's being used to help students who need help?
Yes, it is for students that need help, but also for students that have outstanding attributes to provide to the university.
And Paul, these fees apply to all students, right?
They-
When they change for everybody.
These do, yes.
In the future, I'd like to see you just put percentages on here too, so we can see the percentages along with the dollar amount. But why 25% increase on Lance O'Brien? Is that deferred maintenance? Is there, what would drive an increase like that?
We have a couple of these fees, the Martin Luther King Union, the Lance O'Brien operations, both of those are generating losses right now on a regular operational basis. And so these fees are to more closely associate the current operations with the current cost of those operations. We have, over the years, attempted to reduce costs as much as we possibly could, but we are down to the point where we can't reduce much more. And so this is the option that we have at this point.
Paul or Sean, either one, like when you look at the student fees, like for the average student, what's the dollar increase that they might possibly see from these increases?
Well, that goes back to what I had previously commented on for an incoming freshman with tuition, the proposed increases in housing that Dr. Flaherty will address here shortly, as well as these proposed increases. We're seeing a increase from, let me get my number here, to $11,351.10 per semester. That increase will be $351 per semester for a new incoming student. Of that, the semester increase value for the tuition is about, what, 15, not quite $15?
Yeah, it's $115 for a full-time student.
So for non-incoming freshmen, for current students, the total increase would be that $351 minus the $115. So about $230 increase in fees for students across the university.
So that for non-freshmen, the $230, that's a combination of housing and the student fees?
That is correct.
Okay.
To give you, I've got specifics on each one of those. And the student rec fee increases just about $12 per student for a full-time student. The Martin Luther King operations, $47.50. Lance O'Brien, $16.50. Athletic operations, about 10. Grant and aid, 12. So that gives you an idea of the significance of each of those. Many of those fees are capped at a 12 credit hour limit, even for full-time students.
Thank you.
Other questions regarding the student fees?
Excuse me. I had a question. I'm not, this is for anybody who can answer, I suppose. But in the afternoon session, when we go to vote on these fees, will we be voting on each individual one or all of them as an entire package?
I believe that would be at the discretion of the trustees as to how they would like to take these, if they wanted to take them individually, if they wanted to take them as a package. I believe the trustees have that discretion. Laura, could you comment on that as our...
Yes, certainly the trustees can use their discretion and break them apart. Right now, we're proposing them as different packages as you see in your booklet, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the trustees have the ability, if that's something that they desire to do, we could do that.
Other questions or discussion regarding the proposed student fees?
So I guess just Laura, to clarify then, we've historically taken a vote on them as a package in their entirety, haven't we?
Well, historically, we've taken a vote on the tuition by itself, housing by itself, and
Yes.
and then the fees, I believe,
As
have
one.
always been in a
They've been
package.
collected as a single vote, yeah.
Yeah,
We have broken them out in the past.
Right, we have broken them out.
But it has not been every year we break it out or every year we do it as a group. we've done it both ways, depending upon
You mean
what the
we've
board.
taken a vote on each one of these
Yes.
individually? Gosh, I don't remember it that way.
Well, we don't always bring changes for each of these student fee areas. And in fact, some of these, the athletic fee has not changed in going back to at least 2014. So you might see variation on a
Maybe
year-to-year
that's it.
basis of what the proposed increases are.
And Joe, I think the last time that we broke it out specifically was the last time athletics changed.
So I'd suggest we take a vote on them as one, and any trustee would just say, yeah, I'd prefer to have an individual vote. I mean, is that what you're suggesting? The trustee in the afternoon session would say, I'd like to take these as individual line items.
We can do a motion, the board can do a motion to take them either as one or
Gotcha.
independent of each other. And then the motion would be called and voted on, yes.
So are you saying, so that I'm clear, that right now the intent would be to vote on all of them as one, in one motion and vote, but if a trustee wanted to break them out, then this afternoon's meeting, they could make a motion to do that.
Yeah, let me clarify, because I don't want to mix things up here. In your board packet itself, there is an action item C for tuition.
Right.
Which
I'm
we've
talking about the
recommended.
fees specifically.
And then the fee itself, you're right, is separate, is another action item. The board could determine that instead of doing it as a package, they could break out each of the fees itself if they'd like.
Or I believe any variation, they could say, is there any one of these that the trustees would like to pull out for a separate vote? So it's not just all or none.
Right.
You have that ability as well, depending upon the pleasure of the trustees.
That's correct. Thanks for the clarification. Appreciate that.
But again, Sean, clarify for me, because the percentage increase,
It's varied to meet the actual operational needs of each of those areas, rather than doing a flat fee increase for every one of them. We
Right.
tried to meet the need of each unit and minimize the increase to the extent we could across all of them. So that's why we have such a high degree of variation.
and in some ways, you're playing catch-up for not having taken increases
That is
in some
correct.
past years.
That is correct.
To be totally forthright at this point, both the Martin Luther King Union or the Union Bond Revenue Fee and the Grant and Aid Fee were also increased last year.
Okay.
Hey, Paul, one, or Sean, either one, like, while we have the fees for these different line items, if you were to take the total, I mean, I know we have how much everything's going up, but if you were to take the total student fees and look at what the possible total student fees itself is it probably a small dollar increase when you look at the whole picture?
Probably when you look at the whole picture, we're looking at less than $100 overall on about a $2,000, $2,500 item for the bill for the total year.
Okay. And how much of the total package is made up of all the student fees? Because this is not all of them.
No, all of the student fees, well, on a per credit hour basis. I don't have it on a total basis.
Okay.
So keep in mind this has got to be multiplied by either a 12 or a 15, depending upon which fee it is. But right now, we're at about $127 per credit hour for fees.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
And Paul, that 127, that's current before these increases?
Correct.
Correct.
Shall we move to housing?
Yeah, are there any other questions on fees? Because I want to make sure everybody's comfortable as we go into this afternoon.
Great. Dr. Flaherty is going to walk us through the proposed changes in the housing rates.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. On page 11 and 12 of your board book, you'll see the proposed fee increase for housing and dining for next year. Also, for your information, you received a copy of the 2021 Residence Hall Satisfaction Survey, which they use biannually to obtain resident satisfaction on current services and feedback for future improvements. Housing and dining is proposing a 2.8% increase. This amount is calculated using a rate development sheet that factors in many expenses that Sean has already indicated, but includes salary, fixed costs such as utilities, insurance, maintenance, debt service. The proposed dining increases are also based on increases in food and commodity costs as well as salaries. Also, there's a need to invest in Wi-Fi upgrades, which is a large expense. EIU is the least expensive of the major residential universities, with the exception of Chicago State and Governor's State, which has a fairly limited residential population. Most of the other schools are proposing increases between 2 and 6.64%. A couple are recommending 0. I don't know if you want me to go through all the amounts here, but I will share with you that on page 11, the housing rates, probably the best one to look at would be the 12-meal plan option, as that's the most popular. So that proposed increase would be $5,070 would be the amount, an increase of $138, or $5,070 for the room cost. Did you want me to go through each one, or? Because there's so many variations with all the different housing types and apartments. Okay. I do want to thank Mark Hudson, our Executive Director of Housing, who put together all the data.
I say in the interest of time, I just maybe open it up to questions.
And how does the proposed increase compare to prior years, what we've taken?
I believe last year it wasn't here, but I think it was at 2.6%? Is that right?
I thought it was 2.
2? Okay, thank you. 2%.
It was
I think
2.5
was, or 6 was
2.5 last year.
2.5, Mark?
I'm 2.3, I'm sorry.
Okay, there's Mark Hudson. He says 2.3.
Okay.
I see Mark Hudson on the screen right now, who is our Executive Director of Housing and Dining, and he can probably answer almost any question that's related in any fashion or any way dealing with housing and dining. Mark, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yes, we did indeed do a 2.3 increase last year. I can tell you that our 8-year average of room and board fees has been 1.51%. On the average. Some of those were 0 years, some were 2%, some were in between all those numbers, but an average of 1.51 over the last 8 years.
And this year actually averages what, without doing all my calculations?
It's 2.8.
2.8.
Important to know that housing and dining is a standalone auxiliary. So we get no funds from the state. We get the money from the people who buy our services. So as Dr. Flaherty mentioned, the satisfaction survey that we do every other year is critically important to us, making sure that we have students getting the services they need at a price they can afford to our best of our ability. We're amongst the highest rated satisfied students in the state and some of the least expensive. So that's a good combination for us on a marketing side, as well as just feeling good about what we're offering. I think the number of students, our enrollment directly impacts the number of students that are available to us to stay on campus. We have, in that 8-year window, we've actually, as our enrollment has come down or kind of reconfigured based on more online classes and also the dual credit, all those other kind of influences, our overall budget 8 years ago was $34 million, and this year it's $18 million for income. So that's obviously a very significant decrease. And I'm pleased to say that last year, if it were not for the COVID refunds, we would have been a little bit in the black, not by a lot, but a little bit. But the COVID refunds obviously threw that into the mix, and hopefully that some of our stuff in the federal government will help us deal with recovering some of those resources.
A question too, so this year we went to single room occupancy, right, because of COVID?
Correct.
At no additional charge?
Correct.
So the plan for fall is to reinstate the additional charge for a single occupancy room?
Yes, we have several hundred rooms that are physical singles, which means returning students by their priority of how long they've been with us can apply to live and gets those by priority or seniority. But if one wants to buy out a double room as a single, then there is an extra charge for that we didn't charge this year. And that's money we forgo last year. That was part of the reason why our, not only the refund process, but the offset lost revenue was a big impact on our bottom line.
Do you think that'll have an impact on, again, just you get something for nothing and then you have to pay for it again, just what student reception will be?
Well, Chair Bauer, that's an excellent point, and something we worried about as we went into this process of recontracting. But I can tell you that as of this week, our number of students who are asking for physical singles is almost the same as the 3-year average, and the number of people asking for doubles of singles is also almost exactly the same as it has been in the past, where they would have to pay for them. So it seems like it's holding fairly steady.
Interesting. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have other questions regarding housing?
Yeah, do we know, do we know the results of the student senate vote for this one?
The process of room board development that we've done for the last 20 years is that Student Senate appointed 3 members to Bond Revenue Committee, and RHA appointed 3, and that group of 6 spends about 8 hours with myself and our financial person going through every detail of our housing and dining budget, and they, by consensus, decide what they think the increase should be. Those numbers are reported back. I go do a presentation for RHA and for Student Senate to get their feedback if they have any concerns. But the responsibility for making that recommendation actually comes from that Bond Revenue Committee that's actually been in existence for about 50 years. I was on it when I was a student. And it's a very deep dive into all the details, and the Bond Revenue Committee recommended unanimously for that increase.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Other questions on that?
I believe I have the last item as well
Yep.
for the deferred compensation plan for our committee today. The state university retirement system, acting under the State of Illinois Pension Code, required to establish a voluntary deferred compensation plan under IRS Code Section 457B for all university employees. The plan is funded by elective choice of the employee's deferrals or contributions up to a limit that's established by the IRS. In adopting the plan, SERS is requiring this resolution to be approved by each university board of trustees. And just a couple of other notes, EIU is not making any contributions to this plan. And again, the plan is in addition to the primary retirement plan and optional for employees to contribute to.
Any questions on the plan? Anything else for finance? Let's take a short 5-minute break and get back here at 10:30. Affairs Committee. So with tenure recommendations, so Jay, I would guess you're on for that.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of tenure recommendations, this is actually one of the most exciting parts of my job, is to recommend outstanding colleagues for promotion and tenure each year. This year, as in prior years, the booklet includes a description of the tenure process as it relates to the probationary period, what it means sort of historically, and the experience that our probationary faculty go through. This year we'll be recommending 6 of our colleagues for promotion and tenure, and they really represent sort of the historical strengths of Eastern as well as the emerging opportunities. I'm pleased to recommend Dr. Holly Farley, the interim chair of our new nursing school, Gabe Grant, who's affiliated with our digital media program in the School of Technology, Jennifer Stevens, who is a criminology faculty member. As you know, that's one of our newer programs. But we also have colleagues in more familiar fields that are associated with programs that are outstanding in historical strengths. They include Tina Wong, who's in our MIS area, which is now analytics, and she brings to the table a new perspective on that discipline, and has been critical to spearheading those initiatives around analytics. Heidi Ramrattan, who's in our CDS program, and Dr. Cliff Carnes, who is the chair of our educational leadership program, which serves educators from around the state. So really a pleasure to honor their work, their effort, and highly recommend that the board support our recommendations in the afternoon. Any questions?
It's always fun to read their backgrounds because it's such an impressive group when we see their credentials.
Jay, what percent of folks who enter a tenured track faculty position make it to this recommendation?
Well, it really depends on sort of an individual's career path. I would say, according to we have a union UPI negotiated agreement, has certain standards and metrics, and we follow that, and it's based upon what's called departmental application criteria. And so every department has its own sort of culture and expectations, which are consistent with sort of the overall institution's mission and vision. Relative to an individual who would be appointed for their first year in a probationary tenure track position, I would say probably we have folks who go to other institutions in that 6-year window, but those faculty who commit to be here are successful. And they're successful at a high rate. But we see churn like any organization. In the first 2 or 3 years, faculty make choices, take different opportunities. So, but the great thing about our approach and the partnership we have with our departments in the UPI is that DAC really provides a roadmap for every faculty member to be successful. And so in large part, most of our faculty who commit to understand and embrace our mission have great success, not only during this stage of their career, but they go on to be promoted to full professor. So I hope that's sort of a waffly answer, but I do think it's a testimony to the outstanding commitment these faculty members have to our students and this institution.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the tenure recommendations? Okay. Academic planning?
Thank you. I wanted to provide the board with just an update about sort of what our plans are for next year. As you know, we're really excited and I keep saying 2021 is going to look a lot more like 2019 than fall 2020 for the student experience and the faculty experience. And we're in the process of beginning and pull together our teams in the colleges, the associate deans, as well as the registrar and other partners from across campus to begin to look at what that will mean in the classrooms across campus and what spaces we have. We don't have official guidance from the IBHE yet. We do have preliminary sort of indicators which are positive. And we earnestly believe that we have the capacity on campus to deliver a traditional face-to-face experience next year for the vast majority of our students. And what that means is, Eastern's a special place. We don't have large classes. We don't have big, huge lecture halls. So we have about 20 to 30 classes any given term, between 50 and 99 students, and we have 7 to 10 courses every term. Year to year, it varies a little bit depending upon course offerings that are over 100. So we believe we have enough capacity under the guidelines that we believe will emerge, which hopefully will look something like the K-12 guidelines, to deliver the face-to-face instruction across campus. That means we'll have to continue to use rooms like this ballroom as alternate learning spaces, but we believe we have the capacity to do it. And then the other piece is, we're going to wait on guidance and from the IBHE on other sorts of public health elements such as masking and so on. But we're beginning that process in terms of planning, scheduling, and so on. And then in the summer, of course, we'll have additional conversations with our UPI partners.
Great. Thanks, Jay. Any other questions for Jay?
I have one question.
Yeah, go, Joe.
And I don't know, I didn't know where to, maybe to ask Josh, or I'll ask you. It seems like going back to when President Glassman joined Eastern, when he came in, there had been just a long time of not starting new programs. And then we had this just wave of new majors and programs and collaboration between the different colleges and disciplines. And I don't know, it just seemed like about every other meeting we were approving something. Boy, I don't remember the last time we did. And so was that because there was this pent-up demand and low-hanging fruit? Is Josh not giving you input that says, hey, this is a critical major that we need, or are things under development that we just aren't ready for action on?
Well, I believe there are things under development. There are discussions about an analytics degree at the graduate level and the undergraduate level, and where that is sort of with the faculty at this point. There are discussions ongoing about a health sciences undergraduate degree that would be interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary, that would provide learning opportunities and career opportunities for folks who may have thought nursing was a pathway, but then determined they wanted to make other options. So those things are in development. I would anticipate those proposals to come forward over the next year or so. I think, I think COVID sort of slowed us down in some ways around that because, face-to-face, those sort of relationships, interactions didn't necessarily sort of occur naturally. I do anticipate additional program development, but I would say going forward, the cost of entry for a lot of the new programs that we know are resonate with market and mission. They're rather expensive, so we will have to also do prioritization and reallocation. So that's a discussion of the leadership team and also looking for opportunities for new partnerships with the community, and that would include donors and private sector folks.
For years, you said nursing was number one. What are the top requests now that we can't accommodate?
And we continue to monitor the majors that our prospective students are coming through as we take thousands of records from both ACT and College Board. It's going to be interesting as we potentially see less of that data going forward. We're going to have to find additional sources for that information. But analytics is high on the list, which is part of the discussion. But I think modality is an issue too. As we talk about those reentering students, and you look nationally, and it's where even last year you saw the greatest growth was in graduate programs. And so I just had a conversation with Dean Hendrickson last week about a couple programs in the graduate school planning to bring their programs online, and I think that's going to be huge for us from a growth perspective because it opens us up to a global market, less of a proximity sensitivity issue. But we continue to monitor that ACT and College Board data, and nursing is one, and engineering. We've got the new electrical engineering that's at the top of the list, and it is those programs, especially now. There's a surge of interest in career fields in the medical area, like this. For whatever reason, COVID, the pandemic, as we look at that data from the last year, pre-med, thankfully we've got those pre-health programs in place. We're seeing greater demand for that, and nursing, of course, that's going to be a fantastic program. But again, the sky is the limit as far as we can provide capacity. It's been really interesting as we launched that program. We have transfer students who are wanting to take advantage. We don't have the capacity, and so it's going to be interesting for us to continue to grow that program. That'll be excellent. But a lot of career and majors toward the medical field, and analytics, data, and technology are huge as well right now.
I mean, in the case of digital media, I mean, we went from 0 to about 90 students in the major in 3 years.
That's great.
You know, so there is significant demand, which is also meaning we're going to have to continue to invest in staffing in that area. So there is some reallocation of existing lines. So there's actually a lot of moving pieces there. So we really need to focus on enrollment growth and revenue growth to move to that next level.
So, Josh, did you say, so we're at capacity on nursing? Did I misunderstand you?
In the transfer area, because our program is a 1+3.
Yeah.
So most transfer students would not naturally go into our traditional program. It's really designed for a native undergraduate experience.
Okay.
So that's the one piece. You know, but we have always built our program to bring in somewhere between 75 to 80 prospective new students a year, with the expectation that about half of them would meet the requirements to matriculate formally to the program. So, you know, we anticipate somewhere around 200 students between pre-nursing and nursing, with the understanding that somewhere between 30 to 40 at total build-out, which total build-out will occur in year 3. That's when we'll have maximum capacity.
Other questions? Think we're ready then for quality initiative?
Thank you. I guess that's me again, as some of you may recollect.
You're on a roll.
In 2019, 2020, I brought to this committee just an overview of our quality initiative. The faculty and a community-wide, campus-wide group reviewed about 5 to 7 ideas, wrote some small white papers on 3 topics, developed those further into formal proposals that were shared with the campus community. They provided feedback, and what was selected was an initiative to focus on diversifying our hiring practices to ensure the success of our students. And there's growing research out there that says higher ed really needs to reflect the community of our students and have a community that reflects our student body. And that's been the initiative that has emerged over the past year. A group of about 25 folks in 3 working groups have been developing what is best described as a strategic plan around diversifying our hiring practices. They've looked at our employee practices across all groups, A&P, civil service, and faculty. They've collected some data. They've done an initial draft. They shared that with PC. Based upon that draft, they then shared another revision with our campus community in public forums. They've got additional feedback on that, and we anticipate that PC will get another opportunity to review those materials before the faculty leave. And our hope is we'll be able to bring to you at a future meeting that final strategic plan that we'll implement over the next 18 to 24 months, which will include a really wide array of sort of policy suggestions, practice suggestions, as well as factors to invest in our culture and our people in ways that will enhance retention and connectivity to the campus. So just wanted to put that on your radar. Just know we're still working on it, and it really is an outstanding initiative, and there's a real, I think, true, authentic energy behind it. So that's always a good thing when you're talking about higher learning commission sort of initiatives. Faculty really need to own it, and staff need to be excited about it, and I think we have that in this case. So.
Great. I think that's an important initiative for the university, so we'll be anxious to hear the results.
I was just going to mention, just to make sure that that all of our trustees are aware that the HLC, the Higher Learning Commission, that is our university's overall accrediting body. And as part of the pathway in our accreditation and reaccreditation process, the pathway that we've chosen is one that has a quality initiative that is done by the university, that is organic, and that we believe will help our university move forward. And so this is all tied in, as important as the initiative is, and it is a very important initiative for us, but it is all linked into our overall accrediting and reaccreditation process for the Higher Learning Commission.
Thanks. Any other questions for Jay? Okay. Next, then I think, Ann, are you taking University Police Department?
Thank you, Chair Bauer. I first want to take a moment before we hop on this topic to acknowledge that the national dialogue around policing in the USA today, especially this week with the verdict in the Derek Chauvin trial. The timing of this topic of this board meeting is somewhat coincidental, but it was brought on by some anticipated staffing changes in the police department. Our EIU Chief of Police, Kent Martin, announced a few months ago that he is retiring from his role effective the end of September of 2021. So his retirement provides an opportunity to plan for future leadership of the department, as well as a review of the mission and organizational structure of the police department, scope of services, as well as officer recruitment, training, and retention. Around the country, many university leaders are placing a strong emphasis on community policing and campus safety. To help me think through these variables, I'm exploring the hiring of a consulting firm that specializes in university policing to prepare us as we begin the search for the new chief of police in the coming months. I'll continue to engage a police student advisory board that we put in place this past fall that's been really instrumental in conversations around interactions with students in policing. So I just wanted to share that with the board, and happy to take any questions.
So what will be your hiring timeframe?
Right, Chief Martin will be with us through the end of September, so my goal would be to get a chief in place so that they could overlap at least sometime in September, if not sooner, yeah.
So at our June meeting, will you be able to kind of report back on maybe the work of the consultants, or what modifications or changes you may be thinking about from a policing perspective?
I believe so, yeah. I hope if I can get the consulting firm here right after commencement sometime in May, so we can get some good feedback in drafting a new position description and things like that. So, yep, the timing should work well in June.
Okay, great. Other questions for Ann on that?
And this is Chris Hicks. Are there any, maybe you want to discuss this in the June meeting, but any current concerns that you have around that? Or the current environment, what it's like now? So maybe in June we could probably follow up on that.
Yeah, just kind of some initial, I mean, part of it is, the changing of the leadership. Like many departments at EIU with the budget impasse, there's, they've been challenged with resources, and there's been some turnover in the police department. So looking at retention and training issues will be big. Certainly through my discussions with our students, there have been discussions around kind of just general interactions and feelings around policing. I think our students would really love to see our police, just be more visible on campus, kind of more, bicycle policing, walking around campus. And part of that is I know we're just really stretched right now with our staff. So, but to free up our officers to be able to do that, we have to think about some of the services they currently provide. So all those are considerations.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions on that? Again, we'll hopefully hear more in June.
I understand this might be a little early. I just wanted to ask, during the hiring process for a new police chief, I understand for larger university hires, there's been like a public interview process where students have been allowed to be a part of the interview process. Do you plan for having some input like that for students for the new police chief?
Great question, Michael. With all my hires, I always prioritize having student input on all my searches. The timing of this one will be a little bit tricky because it will be happening as we go into summer and summer. But I think in our current virtual environment, I think we can engage students effectively virtually.
Thank you.
Other questions, Fran? Okay, fraternity and sorority life.
Great, thank you. I'm excited to bring this topic forward, especially this week. This week happens to be a Greek week here at EIU. You actually have, for those of you who are in person, you have a Greek week mask that were distributed among the students who are in fraternities and sororities. For those of you who are joining us virtually, I'm happy to put one of those in the mail to you. Also, our students have been busy this morning going around delivering donuts to faculty and staff as part of their Faculty and Staff Appreciation Day. I'm pleased to have our Director of Fraternity and Sorority Life Programs joining us, Nathan Weir, to give an overview of Fraternity and Sorority Life. He'll share a short PowerPoint with you all, and then we are fortunate, as you can see, to have a wonderful group of students joining us, representing different areas of fraternity and sorority life, to talk about their involvement and experience in Greek life. So I will, at this time, turn it over to Nathan.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm excited to present to you all this morning a little bit about fraternity and sorority programs here at Eastern Illinois University. As we wrap up our Greek week, we do have one event left on Sunday. It is our Fraternity and Sorority Awards, but we look forward to giving you a quick presentation and then for you to ask our students any questions that you have concerning our fraternity and sorority life community. If we want to go ahead, is the presentation ready? Awesome. Connor, if you want to go ahead and skip, if you want to go to the next one. I've been asked to kind of do this a little quick so you get more time with the students. Currently, right now, we have 3 governing councils. So we have our Interfraternity Council, we have our Panhellenic Council, and we have our National Panhellenic Council. Those 3 governing councils are made up of 25 fraternities and sororities that are all social. Right now, we are currently above the all men's, all women's, and all campus averages. So while our students are also succeeding outside of the classroom within philanthropic efforts, community service, they're also striving in the classroom as well. We currently make up about 13% of the campus population with a little over 400 students. If you want to go to the next slide, Connor. I'll talk a little bit about our National Panhellenic Council. We do have 6 of the Divine 9 fraternity and sororities on our campus. If you want to go ahead, Connor. Yes, so we have membership intake that happens either fall or spring. It depends on the organization and their decision to host a membership intake that academic semester. They do kind of prefer sophomore seating only because they have requirements such as community service they need to complete, whether or not they're involved student on campus, whether it's in an RSO, a residence assistant, anything like that as well. They also have a GPA requirement to attend, to participate in membership intake, just like any of our other organizations as well. And in the fall, we host Meet the Greeks, which gives them an opportunity to present who they are as an organization to the campus. Next slide, Connor. As you can see, these are the organizations that we currently have listed here on campus. We have Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, we have Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, and Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. Next slide, Connor. Thank you. Our IFC, our Interfraternity Council, we currently have 9 of the 70 international fraternities on our campus. They are affiliated also with the North American Interfraternity Council, so that's like the council that oversees all campus IFCs. If you want to go next slide, Connor. Thank you. So our fraternity recruitment usually takes place the 2nd week in September for our men to participate in recruitment. There's no registration fee, so they don't have to pay any money to register for recruitment. To participate, they do have to have a 2.5 cumulative GPA that's either from high school, a transfer, or if they are a current student. And our registration for fraternity recruitment usually goes live June 1st. Next slide, Connor. Thank you. And these are our fraternities that we have listed on campus. We have Delta Chi, Lambda Chi Alpha, Phi Kappa Theta, Pi Kappa Alpha, Sigma Alpha Epsilon, Sigma Nu, Sigma Phi Epsilon, Sigma Pi, and Sigma Chi. I always like to joke sometimes, if there's a Sigma or an Alpha in the name, we probably have it on campus here, as you will have already learned. And then when we move into our Panhellenic Council, you'll see that as well. So if you go to the next slide, Connor, thank you. The next slide is going to talk a little bit about our Panhellenic Council, which is referred to as PHC on campus. We also have 9 of the 26 national sororities hosted here on campus. And then we are connected with the National Panhellenic Conference, which is the governing councils that oversees all of a institution's Panhellenic Council. If If you want to go to the next slide, Connor. Awesome. So sorority recruitment usually takes place the weekend right after Labor Day weekend. It's a lot of fun and 5 days of craziness. There is a registration fee for sorority recruitment. It's either between $20 or $30, but with that, they get a recruitment booklet, they get a t-shirt, and of course we feed them as well as they're there for a long time, so they get snacks and dinner as well. And then to participate, they again have to have a 2.5 cumulative GPA. However, some of our organizations do have a higher GPA requirement as well, and then we explain that during the recruitment process. And registration typically goes live June 1st as well. So we do a whole marketing campaign, which is right around the start of orientation here on campus. Next slide, Connor. Again, here are our Panhellenic Council, our Panhellenic chapters that we have here on campus. So Alpha Gamma Delta, Alpha Phi, Alpha Sigma Alpha, Alpha Sigma Tau, Kappa Delta, Delta Delta Delta, Delta Zeta, Sigma Kappa, and Sigma Sigma Sigma. Next slide, Connor. We also have Alpha Psi Lambda National Fraternity Incorporated. They are one of our newest organizations here on campus. They were founded at Ohio State University, so we are very excited to have them here on campus, as they are a co-educational fraternity that is geared towards the goals of Latinx students here on campus. So we're excited that we have this organization here on campus to provide a family for those students as well. Next slide, Connor. I won't go too much into detail with this, but our recruitment process for IFC again and for Panhellenic is kind of a little different than our National Panhellenic Council fraternities and sororities with membership intake. But we usually host a week of recruitment. We encourage our potential new members to participate in that. And then at the end of that, we usually go into the bid process as well. So Connor, if you want to go ahead. Thank you. And then with our membership intake process as well, we also encourage them to make sure they're doing their research before they attend a rush or an informational or an educational based on the organization as well. And then they participate in a membership intake process. And then at the end of their process, they have a new member presentation. Slide, Connor. All right. On this slide, we have recruitment and membership intake by the numbers. As you will see, our total membership from fall 2016 to spring 2021. On the left side, you will see that it has slowly decreased throughout the years. However, I still think we still have a vibrant community here on campus that is made up of strong leaders and strong fraternity and sorority members that are looking to make an impact within our community. And then on the right side, you'll see our new membership totals as well from fall 2016 to spring 2021. And those totals are all inclusive of all governing councils as well. And then here is where we currently stand for spring 2021. With our IFC, we have a total of 142 individuals within our IFC. And then with our National Panhellenic Council, currently we have 48 members. However, we do have 3 chapters that will be doing new member presentations over the next couple of weeks. So we look forward to adding those new members to our community. And then with our Panhellenic community, we currently stand at 223. Next slide, Connor. Awesome. Here you will see academics by the numbers. As I stated, currently we are above the all women's, all men's, and all campus average. However, sometimes that is not always the case, and we make sure that if it's not, we are communicating that correctly. However, we are hoping that with a little bit of a less stressful Greek week that our academics this semester will be a little bit better as they are usually during a spring semester. So this is our GPA by the numbers. Next slide, Connor. Financial responsibility. When a potential new member, which is a member that is interested in participating in recruitment or membership intake, of course, they also have dues they have to pay throughout the organization. With our IFC gentlemen, it's about $400 a semester. And then with our PHC communities, the average is about $500. And then candidates that participate in a membership intake process pay a little bit higher fee only because that includes either new member dues, chapter dues, national dues, and initiation costs. So it is a little bit of a fee to participate in our recruitment. But while we do participate in recruitment or membership intake process, we make sure that we encourage our potential new members to ask those questions as well. Next slide, Connor. We also do community service and philanthropy. So each year, our fraternity and sorority community completes an average about 750 community service hours a year. So this includes either chapter and council requirements. We participate in MLK Junior Service Day, Panther Service Day, Greek Week events as well. And then within philanthropic efforts, the fraternity and sorority community averages between 5,000 to 8,000 per academic terms. And again, that includes all chapter and council philanthropies, Greek Week efforts, and supporting community efforts as well. Next slide, Connor. We have Order of Omega. This is an undergraduate Greek leadership society for those that have a high standard of leadership and academics. The membership to participate in this, you have to have a minimum 3.0 cumulative GPA to participate. And these are individuals that are in top 3% of the FSL community. Next slide. Here's just some pictures from past EIU Homecoming and Greek Week events. Our fraternity and sorority life community is very involved within our homecoming and our Greek Week events as well. And next slide, Connor. Awesome. So this year, for our Greek Week, we did Greeks Give Back. So our focus for this year was to give back to the EIU and fraternity and sorority life, our EIU community and the Charleston community as well. We did blanket making yesterday on our library quad. We made over 230 blankets for One Stop Community Christmas. We also hope that you enjoyed the mask. We had a mask Monday. So if you follow our FSP Instagram, you will notice that it is blowing up with pictures and TikToks. So make sure you check that out when you get a chance as well. But we're really excited for the move that we did for this year's Greek Week and making it still accessible for all chapters to participate. Next slide. We also have Greek Court housing. If you want to move the next slide, Connor, thank you. So students who live in Greek Court, what's awesome now is that they are able to have their own room. They just share a bathroom with the suite mates. They pay room and board through a housing and dining office, so there's no extra fees to participate to live on campus. The average requirement for a fraternity and sorority life member to live on campus is 2 years, and that's just an average. Some chapters do have a 1 year and some do have a 3-year requirement. And we do have one recognized chapter house that is housed off campus, and that is Sigma Pi. And as you'll see on the right side, these are the organizations that currently have chapter houses here on campus. Next slide, thank you. We do attend the Association of Fraternal Leadership and Values every year. This is a conference for undergraduate fraternity and sorority life student leaders that gives them the opportunity to engage their community, engage other student leaders. It's housed in Indy, so we look forward to attending that every year in February. The students love to go and then bring it back and create change within our community. Next slide, Connor. This is just some programming that we do, Greeks and Treats, awards, Greek Week. Next slide, Connor. And here's some chapter programming as well. As you see, we have NPHC Week, pumpkin carving, s'mores with an alpha, Dine and Dash by Panhellenic. Alpha Psi Lambda also had Founders Week. So our chapters are also doing all kinds of cool things on campus as well. Next slide. Awesome, and then here are some of our institution collaborations. We participate very highly in admitted student days. We have panels for students that are interested in joining the community. We work very close with our civic engagement and volunteerism office with volunteering, MLK Day of Service, Women Up Conference, etc. Quick office structure. It's myself and a grad. My grad's currently vacant right now, but I also oversee Greek Court associate resident directors as well that are GAs within our college student affairs programs, our business programs. Just depends on where their GA or where their college is located in their major within graduate school. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought on that one. And then if you want to go ahead and move to the next one. Some future goals and programming that we have for our office. We're looking to implement a chapter accreditation program to make sure that our chapters are doing what they need to do. This is a practice among state and local institutions here in the state of Illinois and nationwide. We're looking to do a new member and member program for new students to senior year, kind of a legacy program. So starting off as like a Greek 101, going into like Greek 401 as your senior year. And then alcohol and other drug training. This will be collaborations with HERC and Ever5 presentations. We all want to make sure that we are also doing diversity, equity, and inclusion training and safe zone training for chapters. So that's either with our gender and sexual diversity office, our Office of Academic and Engagement Inclusion. And then I also want to make sure that when we do have chapter advisors or new advisors coming on to support our organizations, that they have training about the institution, the training about the community, and the training about the office as well. And of course, we will also continue our hazing prevention and education training. All right, so moving on to our student panels, as you will see, we have Hannah Gillespie, who is a member of Alpha Gamma Delta here. She's also our current Greek Week overall chair, and she's also a current admissions counselor within our Office of Admissions as well. Then we have Karen Gonsky, who is our current Panhellenic president, member of Kappa Delta. We also have Blake Meadows, who is president of the Alpha Psi Lambda National Fraternity Incorporated. And then we also have Isaiah, who is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. He's also the vice president of our National Panhellenic Council. And then we have Jordan, who is a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and she's our current president of the National Panhellenic Council. And then we have Jack Drucke, who is a member of Sigma Phi Epsilon Fraternity and the current vice president of membership development. Mr. Eric Hunter could not join us this morning as he got called into work last minute. So I will now turn it over to you all for any questions for our students.
Questions for the students?
I have a few questions if the trustees
Absolutely.
don't. Should I go ahead? Anyone?
Yep.
Okay. How have you all personally benefited from, by joining a fraternity or sorority, the community here at EIU?
Nathan, would you prefer us to go in order of how you introduced us?
Sure, that works.
Hi, yeah, so as Nathan said, my name's Hannah Gillespie. I am currently Greek Week overall, but I also served as Panhellenic president before Karen. So just personally, I'll move through it quick because I couldn't even name the amount and the ways that Greek life has benefited my life, but specifically, my go-to response is that I was hired part-time as the Central Illinois Admissions Counselor here on campus, and I will take over full-time in May. And my interview with admissions, my process with them, I would not have felt as confident and secure in the responses I was able to give them in my ability to handle certain situations, conflict, my comfort with diversity, my comfort in working with individuals that I may not have had similar backgrounds with. I may not know I may not understand financially, or things of that nature if I had not been a part of Greek life, which opened me up to the ability to get to know individuals that maybe didn't come from the same areas that I did. Just like I'll be working with students who did not come from the same area that I did. So I would definitely say that if it was not for Greek life, I don't know that I'd have the job because it just presented me with so much confidence in my responses and my ability to recruit students for Eastern, depending on where they come from and what they need from us.
I'll go ahead and go next. My name is Karen. I am the Panhellenic president right now. I took over Hannah's role after she went. And I mean, I've served on the Panhellenic Executive Board with Nathan for 3 consecutive years. I started as a freshman, I'm now a junior, and will continue into my senior year. So the leadership opportunities that Greek life has presented me is, like, it almost makes me emotional. And I think Hannah also agrees with me because we get teary-eyed when we talk about this question. I wouldn't be half the person I am without the leadership experiences that I got and the connections that I have. My chapter in general, I have 2 advisors that would do anything for me too, just with what I've done for Kappa Delta and also what I've done for the Panhellenic community as well. And just in general, like, I have so many people in my corner here at Eastern. We really are like all in for you, as we all like to say. And I have so many faculty on my side. Nathan would do anything for me. My advisors would do anything for me. And in a community that has a lot of Greek life members, we wouldn't have that opportunity that we have here. So the amount of faculty that really are like for us and want us to succeed, as well as my leadership opportunities, I wouldn't have it without Greek life.
Oh, is it me? All right. Oh, is it me or Blake? It's me. I'll go. It doesn't matter. I'll go. How y'all doing? So for me, I'm Isaiah McLaren. I'm the current vice president of the Zeta New chapter here on campus of Alpha Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, as well as the vice president of the NPHC here on campus. But for me, Greek life has done a lot for me. It opened a lot of doors for me. Made me come out of my shell a little bit. I became a more open person, a more acceptable person to talk to. And then also it just, it helped me build a lot of connections with people, such as faculty on campus, other leaders in different organizations, and it helped me connect more with people. That's one thing I can really say about Greek life. It really opened a lot of doors, regardless of whatever council you're a part of. It does open things for you in general. Yeah, so that's what it does for me.
So I'm Karen, and I am the president of National Panhandle Council, and I've been doing that for 2 years now. So I can say also as well, like I feel like Greek life, as everybody has said, like it has opened a lot of doors of opportunities for me. Like I feel like Eastern already offers, you know, many ways for you to get involved on campus, but I feel like as being a leader, you know, in my position, I feel like I have gotten more like opportunities. Like I'll just get emails first-handed of opportunities that I can get involved in and how I can make sure like other sororities and fraternities are getting involved in as well. And I also feel like being in like a leader role, it has helped me become more like outside of my comfort zone, like getting more comfortable with like public talking and being organized, because like basically as a leader, you have to make sure your work is in order to make sure that everything else functions well. So I feel like that gives more pressure on you. So it's, you know, I feel like that's good because it'll help me in my future endeavors that, you know, I have planned from completing school. So that's it.
Okay. Any other comments on that from the students? If not, I know we're a little over time, so I know we had some other questions, but maybe if I'll just open it up if there are any last minute thoughts that students want to share about being involved with fraternity and sorority life that you think maybe the Board of Trustees maybe don't know about here at Eastern.
Yeah, I'd like to tag in actually.
Please.
So my name is Jack Jerky. I'm the VP of membership development for ISC, and I'm actually a transfer student. So I came from SIUE. And I can say that if it wasn't for like Hannah Gillespie, my sister was a GAM with Hannah. If it wasn't for her and multiple other people that were in Greek life, I would not be in Greek life today. And I would not have as many friends as I think that I would have. So I've definitely had a great experience, and it's just my first year here, just being transferred. And there's just endless opportunities for me. Like running for IOC, I just did that out of the blue and I was able to secure it. And like, I'm completely confident that the Greek community is like offering opportunities. We're able to do so many things at once. Like there's endless things that you can do with Greek life here at Eastern, and that's my piece, so.
I think there was one other person who asked this question. Was there one other?
Yeah, was there one other
Did we miss a student?
Lady that didn't get to speak?
Like,
Yes, hi everybody. I'm the current president of Alpha Psi Lambda. Just like everybody else said, it's opened a lot of leadership abilities for me. I was actually a transfer student. I spent 2 years at another university. I wasn't really involved in the community there on campus at all. So it was very different coming to Eastern, and I jumped like right into it. I started my process, and ever since then I have been involved with campus and within my fraternity, and it's opened so many opportunities, not just on campus, but all across the world. I have people across the states that would be willing to just like hang out if I'm like at different states. And so I really appreciate all of that.
All right. Thank you. I want to thank all the students for being here. I know it is an especially busy week with it being Greek week, the semester coming to a close. I know it's Friday morning early for some of you. So I thank you. And I do want to acknowledge all the great social media you've been doing for EIU Go Time. There has been some really great stuff out there. So thank you all for contributing to that as well. I want to especially thank Nathan. He is a one-person office as a full-time staff. He juggles a lot, and I'm grateful for his leadership and working with the students. So again, thank you for sharing a little bit of your experience at EIU, how it is a community, fraternity sorority life is a community for you, because we know that contributes to retention and student success. So again, thanks for being with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for the invitation. I hope you all got to learn more about our fraternity sorority life community here at Eastern Illinois University. And if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out, and we are happy to share anything as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay. Ann, Jay, Audrey, anything else for student and academic affairs? Okay, then we've got University Advancement and Alumni Relations with Marty and Ken.
Marty, if it's okay with you, I'll go ahead and launch into the aspects of our report.
Yeah, please. Thank you, Tim.
I'm going to go ahead and bring up a slide deck here in a second. There we go. And go ahead and advance to the next slide. As you know, I like to always share where we're at with fundraising. And a quick snapshot of our donor counts. We continue to trail prior years at this same spot in the total number of donors. This continues to be a concern. One bright spot in these slides are that the number of new donors is increasing over the past years. We're at almost 1,200 at this point this year. Last year at this point we were just under 1,100. So I feel good about donor acquisition, but continue to have concerns about recovering lost donors from the past and retaining donors from the prior year. We do have a lot of things going on here in the fourth quarter, so that could affect those, but this overall trend continues to be a concern. Next slide, please. In terms of dollars, we're having a better year than we might have expected, particularly considering the headwinds of COVID. Through the end of the third quarter, we're at $3.2 million in receipted gifts compared to $5.2 million last year. It looks like a big drop off, but you can see the 2 years before that, we're well ahead of where those years were. The other thing that's illustrative about this slide is if you look at the yellow columns, those are the amount of dollars that have been donated by donors in that cohort that's giving $25,000 or more in the size of that gift. It's another indication that you'll continually hear from me that what drives the big overall number are how you're doing in your major gift program. Next slide, please. I also like to share impact. Where does the money go when it gets here? Through the third quarter, roughly half and half. Half of the dollars are flowing into the endowment, and those produce income for the university in perpetuity. And then actually slightly more than half of the dollars that have come in have come directly and impact operating right away during the fiscal year that they arrive. We've had about $13,000 in capital gifts this year, although I expect that number to increase with some gifts that have happened here in the month of April that are related to capital. And then on the engagement side, we always like to report on the alumni giving rate. So far, up to at this point of the year, we're at 2.43% through quarter three. So we got to get at least another 0.6% to get back over the top of 3%. That's one of the key metrics for me, is turning around the alumni giving rate and moving it back above 3% and then going from there. And then we always like to report on board giving. And if you combine all three of our boards, the Board of Trustees, the Foundation Board, and the Alumni Association Board, that represents 37 people this year. 32 of those 37 have made a gift to EIU during this fiscal year at 86%. And there's still time in quarter four for us to close on those other 5 potential donors.
And a little bit of humble pie for myself here. I think I harped on this last time, and I'm one of the 5, so I'm giving my donation now. Ken.
You just saved me a phone call, Marty. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking.
But if you remember, this is about the time of year you give, so it works out really good. Okay, we're going to go ahead. Did you have a question, Joe? Or?
I just want to know if Marty had given anything.
Okay, so it is official that Marty probably will have made a gift before the end of this presentation. And then I wanted to share some information from our Alumni Association and from our foundation. First, from the Alumni Association, they have their next meeting tomorrow. And some big things on their radar are some gifts that they're considering making to different areas of the campus. They'll be renewing their board membership and their slate of officers. And they're looking to meet in person on campus this summer for their next full meeting. They're investigating whether they can pull that off. Typically, they hold a Chicago meeting in July, but to a person, they're all very interested in coming back to campus and seeing EIU. And then the other big item in the alumni area that we're excited about is the Alumni Association itself has committed some of their reserve dollars to invest in some alumni programming. So we'll be able to have a more ambitious alumni event schedule going to regions and cities than we might otherwise be able to do. Thanks to the Alumni Association investing in that. And then in the annual fund area, we have the faculty staff campaign is underway. This is the first time we've had the campaign since at least fiscal 15. Many of you would have seen that Wednesday of this week was the EIU Giving Day. We had more than 200 unique donations just in the online format on that day. A couple big gifts, including a $50,000 challenge gift that was a part of our setup, and then a surprise $50,000 gift that came that day. We're still tallying, but it would not surprise me if the Giving Day overall yielded more than $150,000 for EIU, almost all of that to operating, which is helpful. And then this is a big time of year for our direct mail campaigns. We have about 9,000 pieces of direct mail solicitations that are out and have been out for a little bit, and we have another wave of direct mail that'll be going out in May and June, and that fine line printing contract is very important to what our work that we do in the direct mail area. And then from the foundation, one observation that was really interesting is how the dollars in the endowment have swung over the last 12 months through the COVID. It had dipped down to $71.4 million late April last year, had made it back to 77.2 by the end of September, and was at 86.7 million when we ended the calendar year. If you ask me today, I would expect that the foundation is above 91 million in the endowment because of how Q1 went in the stock market. They're going to be filling 3 vacancies on the foundation board, and those new members will be seated at the October meeting, so they're busy recruiting or reaching out to potential new members. And then since we've last spoke, we've had 3 different new endowments created, including the Hammond Fund, which has named the deanship in the graduate school, the Carl Meadows Scholarship for District 214 students, and an endowment scholarship underwritten by the Sidwells. So we have a couple others that are in the hopper, but those are 3 that have been signed and inked just since we've last met. So I think with that I would say, are there any questions about the dollars and donors that I've shared, or the Alumni Association, or the EIU Foundation?
Ken, just one question on the Panther Retention Scholarship. Do we have any numbers on that, and how that's doing this year?
I don't know what the current balance is in there. Josh, have you interacted with that fund recently to know where we stand?
I looked at it a couple months ago. I'm not
Okay.
sure what.
I don't have the current
today.
number. I also know, Marty, that the EIU Foundation is likely to make another $50,000 investment in that Panther Retention Fund. And we've put it front and center as a featured item in the faculty staff campaign, as encouraging faculty and staff to consider giving to it.
Great, thank you.
That's a good question. Okay, the last item in our committee report is, it was important, we felt, to catch everybody up on the trustees about our planned giving program. So I've invited my colleague, Jonathan McKenzie. He's the Chief Operating Officer of the foundation. He also leads the planned giving function of our development program. And he's got a presentation to catch the Board of Trustees up on this important piece. And so I'll hand it over to Jonathan. Next slide, please.
Well, very good. Well, morning, everybody. Pleasure to be with you, and I will keep this short. I know you have a busy agenda today. First, Connor, if you would advance to the next slide. The Heritage Society. When we talk about planned giving, our Heritage Society is our recognition society here at the Foundation, where we recognize those who have made a planned gift commitment. And next slide. You may ask, what exactly does a planned gift entail? And a planned gift typically includes a reference in a will or other estate document. That's about 80% of most charities in terms of the dollars that they're recognizing in planned giving. At Eastern, it's probably between 80 and 90%, including a planned gift commitment of a will or other estate document is quite common at Eastern. Aside from wills, there are other types of planned gift instruments. A donor could designate the EIU Foundation as a beneficiary of a retirement account, such as an IRA or 401k. They could designate us as a beneficiary on a life insurance policy. It could be a bank account or other investment account, a brokerage account. They could name us as a beneficiary of a trust or a charitable gift annuity. Those types of designations can either be revocable or irrevocable, depending on the instrument. And you'll see here in just over the next couple of slides why that in particular is of great significance. So Connor, the next slide. Presently, in terms of our Heritage Society, we have 252 individuals that comprise the society. 169 individuals are associated with 131 documented planned gift commitments. And there's another 83 of that 282 who have indicated that the EIU Foundation is a beneficiary, but we do not have a documented planned gift commitment on file. Many of those folks we have reached out to in the past, especially the last two campaigns, but they chose not to provide much detail on their intentions. And incidentally, a lot of those folks, the majority of these 83, indicated their intentions on alumni surveys going back to 1990 and 1999. So as I look to the year ahead, I'll be spending a good portion of my time following up with these 83 individuals and seeing if we can more formally document their gift intentions. Next slide. I think you're going to be impressed with this in terms of the overall numbers and the health of our Heritage Society. But in terms of overall numbers, we have $39,779,000 in planned gift commitments. And that includes 5 that are anonymous commitments, totaling $455,000. Those requesting anonymity, we include them in the Heritage Society, but we don't necessarily recognize them at their request. And in terms of the overall range of planned gift commitments, they range anywhere from $500 to $5 million. 12 of the commitments that we have are irrevocable, and they total a little over $900,000. The most common are life insurance, where the foundation is the not only the beneficiary, but we own the policies. But it can also include several charitable gift annuities and trusts that the foundation is the irrevocable beneficiary for. In total, we have 38,866,000 planned gifts that are revocable. So as we move to the next slide, keep in mind that roughly $40 million total. Because of that, 14 individuals have commitments that exceed $1 million. And those commitments total $26.4 million. And all of those commitments are revocable. So that means that this particular group warrants very special attention in the years ahead to steward them. On the next slide, I thought you might find it interesting just to know the dispersion of where our Heritage Society members live. Interestingly, if you were to lay a map of our alumni population on top of this, they would be pretty well identical in terms of percentages. Most of our alumni reside in Illinois. Most of our Heritage Society members reside in Illinois. We have significant populations of Heritage members in places like Florida and Arizona, Texas, California, where you would expect some retirees to reside. But this just gives you an idea. We also have some folks residing in foreign countries that are Heritage Society members. So a good variety, living in a variety of places. The next slide just gives you some idea in terms of the ages. And when we talk about stewardship, remember, Heritage Society members are all ages. The youngest in the group is 27 years old. The oldest just turned 100 last December. The average age is 71. And we have 39 members that we don't have a birthday recorded. The reason for that is largely because we have spouses and significant others that one is an Eastern alum and we have a more robust record for them, and we just don't have a birthday for the spouse. So some of those things we will continue to follow up on in an effort to more fully document the membership of the society. On the next slide, just a couple of takeaways. When we talk about our planned giving and the health of our effort, planned giving is critical, not only to the short-term fundraising goals, but really the long-term needs of EIU. Planned gift commitments mature over many, many years. And so those intervening years require a great deal of stewardship to maintain very positive connections with our donors and to maintain those bequests and designations. The impact of a single planned gift from the residual of an estate will far exceed what that individual would be able to give during their lifetimes from their personal income. So as we look ahead to the years ahead of us, we're going to really reinvigorate our Heritage Society and our planned giving effort. On the next slide, we have 4 areas of concentration. Engagement. There are a lot of folks in our area that work with our alumni and donors, whether they are accountants, whether they're lawyers, farm managers, investment managers, folks that are working with clients who are having conversations about charitable gifts. And we want to share some of the activities, some of the things going on at Eastern with those individuals, so that when they are meeting with their clients and our alumni, they can share that. And they'll have contact and information for folks here at Eastern that we can reach out to and have those conversations. Marketing, as we have a variety of marketing tools at our disposal. Website, Twitter, we have an alumni magazine that's published. We have a monthly e-newsletter. Being able to include opportunities for people to designate or make a planned gift, have those conversations, and invite them to reach out to us, and also just share some stories of some of our planned gift donors and what their hopes and intentions are to try to motivate people to do similarly and make a planned gift. Mention the documentation. That is important. It's ongoing. We spent much of the last year going back through a lot of the documents for the planned gifts that we already have and making sure that we have a lot of that detail. But we will continue to do that in an effort to make the intentions as well documented as possible. And lastly, and I think most importantly, is recognition. We have had a Heritage Society for many years. We have not really fully utilized that society, and so we want to improve it, expand it, find some unique ways to engage our Heritage Society members and share with them the happenings at EIU and continue to promote those good feelings about their planned gift. So with that, I'm going to invite any questions that any of you may have.
Any questions for Jonathan related to our Heritage Society or planned giving platform or program?
That was interesting, Jonathan. In all honesty, I didn't even know we had a thing called the Heritage Society. So I think it's important to get the word out there, and the potential is very significant. So more publicity might be good.
Okay.
Other questions, comments?
Thank you again, Jonathan. Appreciate your presentation and your work in the planned giving area.
You're very welcome.
I believe that concludes the committee's report.
Thank you, Ken. Anything else, Marty?
No, thank you.
Okay, then I think we are done with committee. Anything else from a committee perspective? Okay, then we are going to call the board meeting to order, and Judy, you'll take a roll call? Yes, here.
Here.
Can't hear Judy.
Here. Because that works better.
Yeah.
Mr. Perry,
Here.
Mr. Ruhack,
Here.
Mr. Thompson,
Here.
Miss Edwards. Here.
Okay,
Mr. Hicks.
Here.
Okay, thank you.
thanks, Judy. Okay, the next is, I believe we might have a motion.
Yeah. I move that the board convene in executive session to consider the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific individuals and collective negotiating matters as permitted by Section 2C, 1 and 2 of the Open Meetings Act.
Okay, thank you, Michael. And do I have a second?
Second, Audrey.
Okay, thank you, Audrey, and a roll call.
Mr. Dively,
Yes.
Miss Edwards. Miss Edwards. I'm sorry, yes. Mr. Hicks,
Yes.
Miss Madigan, Yes. Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Mr. Ruhack,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Miss Bauer.
Yes. Okay, we will go into executive session now, so give a couple minutes for people to leave the room. Oh, we going? We're going. Okay,
Yeah, and there is lunch waiting there for people participating in executive session. They'll be waiting for you in the room.
got it. Thank you.